foot drop punt is pure. We're not done yet.
The 2024 AFL Premiership season on radio, Sport Digital, and take us with you on the ABC Listen app. Just look for the AFL button.
Something big is coming, I know.
Welcome to the Adelaide Oval for the latest chapter in a season littered with 8-point games as Port Adelaide hosts the Western Bulldogs. The Power's emotional turmoil far from over as they return home to a temperamental fan base. They know the math all too well. A win would move them into the top 4 and a loss would drop them out of the 8. The team eyeing their spot, their opponents, the Bulldogs, who know all about pop blowing up the Power's dreams. This is the side that shocked the state with a prelim final demolition a few years ago. And now they're looking to unravel the Power once again on the road. They'll need to do so without Liam Jones and Cody Waitman, however, both out with injury. No late changes ahead of bounce down here with Frankie Evans, the sub for the Power, and Joel Fraser for the Bulldogs. Aaron Bryant's calling the action for you for Saturday footy on ABC Sport under the bright sunshine here in Adelaide. And alongside me is Neil Cross. Good to see you, Crossy.
Aaron, great to be here. As usual, looking forward to what turns up today. Who knows? I think Port Adelaide's won the past 3 against the Bulldogs. The Bulldogs are on a 2-game winning streak, which isn't all that much, but you'll take what you can get if you're a Bulldogs fan. But you'd have no confidence in any tip this afternoon. Really, you wouldn't. It's that tight. It's just hard to pick.
State of the season, a 13-horse race, and we're far from the end in terms of the final corner. So still 8 rounds to play out. And you're right, the Bulldogs win today. It's the first time this year they'd have 3 wins in a row, which is amazing for a side that sits at 8-7 and in the mix for finals. But that is the state of 2024 and what AFL is right now, which just makes it so enthralling week upon week. Your experts, a couple of stars in the house in the ABC box. Great to welcome 4-time Showdown medalist Josh Franco back. Good to see you, Josh.
4-time.
We're giving you the retrospective.
Oh, you are giving me that one.
Yeah,
fantastic.
We're locking it in.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, thanks for having me again. Great to be here. Terrific afternoon. Interestingly, though, I haven't been here for the last 3 weeks, and you talk about so much happening in this world of footy and the AFL. A couple of weeks ago, we saw the temperamental Port Adelaide faithful booing Ken Hinkley. He was emotional after the game against St Kilda last week, so I'm enthralled to see what today throws up come about 4 o'clock this afternoon.
We had the CEO, Matthew Richardson, on SA Grandstand this morning, non-committal about the future of Ken Hinkley, just happy to live in the moment, get through the year and make a decision at the end. But the deafening silence of that footy club over the past 2 weeks is a big concern about the state of where they are and the questions the fan base are currently asking of the club at Alberton. There's a fair few of them in the house today. It's not as packed as we'd expected, especially because the car park's apparently full, but there's plenty of empty seats. Someone who knows all about that, who tried to get in at the last possible minute, is 6-time All-Australian Ebony Marinoff. Good to see you, Noffy.
Oh, thanks. It's good to be back. And another wonderful day at the Oval. I think I was in this seat a couple of weeks ago and it was a stunning afternoon for footy. And I think when we go back and reflect at Port's last home game, it was against Brisbane Lions, and there was a big build-up in the anniversary and the Guernsey, and you felt a sense of real aggression in the first quarter, and they just unfortunately weren't able to go with the Brisbane Lions. And then last week, just what a game that was, just Darwin boring. I'm not the biggest fan of watching St Kilda play, but you'd really like them to bounce back today. It's an intriguing battle with the Bulldogs. I think they've been up and down, but I'm not quite sure how they stop the Bontempelli today.
Ultimately, you're just happy with the 4 points, right? But Hall of Famer Nathan Burke was part of the call and said it's the worst game of footy he's ever seen, and it's a bit tricky when you're being labelled a top 4 side and the fan base is booing your senior coach about your progression to justify that you are going all right when you play the way they did against the Saints, Josh. It feels like we saw a little bit more out of the midfield last week, but it still hasn't quite come together.
Well, it's funny, Aaron. I was actually away fishing on the York Peninsula as I was listening to you guys call the Port Adelaide St Kilda game, and the fish weren't biting, the game was boring, so I had to go back to Spotify and listen to some music. So, look, no, but you're right. It was a dull, boring game. They got the 4 points. That's, I guess, all you can ask for. But I guess the real test for Port Adelaide today is how they respond, how they come out, and the way that they played this game of footy today. Can they get back to their brand? As I said, we'll wait and see. I do have a little bit of trepidation in picking Port today. I think they're a little bit flaky at the moment, have real concerns around that. The midfield battle is going to be really interesting because the Western Bulldogs boast, real depth and outright talent in their midfield. So, Butters, Rosie, Horn-Francis, who were in pretty good form last week, it's going to be up against it. in terms of that midfield battle today. And then ahead of the ball and behind the ball, also there's going to be some pretty interesting duels.
Well, the Dogs are a bit trickier themselves in terms of their form, Ebony. They've won 5 of the last 7, but if you actually look at the quality of the opponent over the year, their probably only big wins are Gold Coast, Collingwood and Freo now. Outside of that, losses to Melbourne, Geelong, Essendon. They lost to the Dockers as well earlier in the year, Sydney and Brisbane. So they don't really have a resume that says they belong in a top 4 conversation, but they're still in the mix, and 5 of the last 7 sounds great on paper.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you look at, what is it, the from 4 to 13th, like it's so tight. And I think if you reflect a couple of draws in there as well, it might actually hurt some teams coming into finals. But yeah, they haven't been consistent. I think they've tirelessly, backed through Luke Beveridge, and he's quite vocal in the media. But it's been interesting, and you speak about the stars of Port in the midfield. But one thing I think Bulldogs will have today is the experience. They've probably got the midfield battle will be quite even in terms of the talent, but does that experience shape up around the contest is probably my question mark.
Well, I guess also too, when you talk about the 3rd to 13th, Crossy and I were having a conversation off air that generally with 23 games in the season, about 12 or 13 games get you in. And Crossy, you're almost saying that 11 and a half potentially get you in this year. And I guess this is the time of year where we start talking about how many wins you need to get into finals. But that sort of mid-pack, it's really, really tight.
The run home's so tricky as well, especially for Port Adelaide. So they've got Gold Coast to come, Carlton, Sydney, Melbourne, Freo and a showdown. So essentially 7 of their last 8 could be line ball games, and certainly aren't favourites heading into those. The Western Bulldogs is a little bit more generous. They'll have North, the Crows at home, the Giants, Geelong amongst that. So it's a little bit better, but both of these sides would be very, very thankful to lock away 4 points this afternoon.
Absolutely. I think one thing we're probably guilty, I know I'm guilty of saying up here in the commentary box before every game, is that it's a big game for both sides. This week, it is massive.
We're going to be saying that for the next month, aren't we?
Yeah, true, absolutely. But this is huge for Port Adelaide, as it is for the Western Bulldogs. So I'll tell you what, if Port Adelaide can't get the job done here today, there's going to be a few disgruntled Port Adelaide supporters leaving Adelaide.
What do you expect the response to be then? And how did you react a fortnight ago when they were booing Ken Hinkley? Because it's a response you don't see often from a fan base, to go that hard and personally at a senior coach. They're throwing signs up like sack Hinkley around Alberton Oval, and it's been pretty full on here the past few weeks.
It was really interesting having Brogues here from, an expert point of view, and being really passionate about the footy club, and you get a little bit more of an insight to that passion. But you could sense back a couple of weeks ago when I was able to do the special comments and watch and really analyse the plays, you can sense it's energy and effort to me that I see is not at the level. And sometimes that's not on the coach, that's on the players to be able to perform and bring energy to one another, and to hit the contest. And the work rate, I think, maybe the question of the likes of Connor Rosie and Jason Moore-Francis and that Butters, defensively, when they're on and they're tackling and they're putting that pressure on the opposition's midfield, they're brilliant and they look good and they look hard to play against. But when you're consistently just running one way and the opposition's getting you on the rebound, like Brisbane did a couple of weeks ago, they were able to find a little bit of form against St Kilda. But I think that the Brisbane Lions one for me, that the energy and effort last week was a bit of a, like you said, you've turned it off and put on Spotify. It was just boring and dull, and there wasn't much energy about it. They have to bring the energy and effort today to, quieten the external noise reality that comes with it. But for me, it's energy and effort, and there's not much that takes. It's mindset.
Agreed. And I think that's a really good point, Ebony, in terms of Port Adelaide. And again, talking off air, that I think the real issue they have as well is dealing with the expectation of big games. We've seen it in showdowns. We saw it, the 04 Premiership reunion a couple of weeks ago against Brisbane, and we've seen it in the past in the, recent history in finals campaigns where they've really struggled to deal with the expectation of winning. And as a result, as you said, what that looks like visibly is a side that's actually not performing in terms of those effort KPIs and contested ball, tackle count, those sorts of things, not to the standard that Port Adelaide supporters have become accustomed to. And I'm talking accustomed to back in the old Port Adelaide Magpies day, without reminiscing too much. But there's an expectation amongst the supporters that they do set high standards, which also the game demands. And at the moment, they're too inconsistent in that space, which is why I go back to that original comment I made, whereas I think Port Adelaide are a little bit flaky in terms of, if they're up against a side, the expectation to win is there, and if they're up against a side that's bringing the heat physically, I think they really struggle.
Well, you talk about the Port Adelaide way or that, it's tough, ruthless footy, and I think if you're a Port fan and you can understand why the fans are feeling frustrated, they just haven't been able to show that. I think it really... Just remembering the Connor Rozee hamstring, since all that saga happened and there was pressure on the footy club, question marks around their strength and conditioning and whatnot, and just Charlie Dixon not being out of form and, not playing. I think since that was the time frame that I feel that Port Adelaide lost their way in terms of just being really attacking and expressing themselves on the field. And like you said, flaky is a good word because that's reality. It's just what they've been the past 6 or so weeks.
Yeah. And again, another shoot comment. And also, when you look at the Western Bulldogs and the style of play that they like to implement, they do like to flick the ball around by hand. So if you're not bringing the heat against this mob, they will absolutely cut you up in the scramble at the stoppages with their ability to change angles with that short little handball and get good clean exit. But if you can bring the heat, they're vulnerable.
Thoughts of All-Australian midfielder Josh Franco, the AFLW Games record holder Ebony Marinoff here at the Adelaide Oval, ahead of Port Adelaide and the Western Bulldogs. Scarves are in the air. They're standing on their feet, united a fortnight after booing their senior coach. The Port Adelaide fans back on board after a 2-point victory over the Saints at the Docklands. There are no late changes for this matchup. Over at in the other game over at the Docklands, North Melbourne play Gold Coast. There's no late changes there. The subs Curtis Taylor and Bailey Humphrey. If you want to hear it, jump on the ABC Listen app and hit the AFL button. Meanwhile here, the coin toss happened in the middle. Josh Money, what did you see down there?
Oh, Aaron, it's a beautiful day, actually, isn't it, for footy? A bit of a northerly breeze, so when Connor Rozee won the toss, it was an obvious call for Port Adelaide, and they will kick to the cathedral end of the ground, left of your radio dial. They're singing Never Tear Us Apart, but there is a nervous energy at ground level. Be interesting to see what happens if they start slowly.
Text line across the afternoon, 0437 774 774. It's Port Adelaide and the Western Bulldogs. Saturday footy on ABC Sport. Neil Cross to get us underway.
Well, if ever there was a 50-50 game, this is it. Both sides sitting 7th and 9th. Port Adelaide 7th, the Bulldogs 9th. And they're tapping on the window, just trying to get in. The Dogs out of the middle, first touch, Wines. Wasn't a great ball drop in the end. He had to soccer it forward. Bailey Dale picks it up. And then to Duray by hand. And then it went off to Treloar. And Bontempelli on the wing takes the mark. Quick hand pass off. Vandermeer was there. Outside to Duray. Down to half forward. They've got it to West. He's outside 50.
Riley West swings it around on the right into the left forward pocket. Norton uses the body on Zerk Thatcher. Edged him under the drop and takes the mark, push in the back. Umpire charges in and hands it over to Port Adelaide. It looked pretty egregious, Josh.
Yeah, that was there. Just looking at the replay, definitely the one hand in the back, momentum going forward for Zerk Thatcher, the giveaway for the umpire.
He'll share it with Aaliyah. They look much better without Radaglia last week. A bit more stable this back line as they exit defensive 50. Farrell to Rozee. Now Drew and Wines. Nice little chain for the power through centre wing. Poor delivery up towards half forward though. Wines kicks it straight to Karmas. One of the inclusions for the Dogs this afternoon. They'll share it with another. As Caulfield drives it up towards Richards, and now Liberatore through the centre square.
Down to half forward or inside half forward it goes. Vandermeer will run back onto it. He's got a hand pass over the top and he can't make it. Bergman got in there, got the ball away to Zerk Thatcher, put him under pressure, but he was good enough to give it back to Bergman, and by hand he goes to Aaliyah, outside 50 with the kick. Marshall diving, almost took it, tapped it to Rozee, dances around, hand pass to Wines, back to Rozee, on the arc of 50 defensively for Port Adelaide, short and Sweet.
Sweet turns. Dinks it over the top to Butters and hands it to Rozee, who kept running. The skipper for the power sends it into the scoreboard pocket. Perfectly weighted to Georgiadis. Charging back to the flight, he reels it in and takes the mark. 40 out, 45-3 angle to the right.
That was a magnificent kick there from Connor Rozee inside forward 50. Did some really good work at half-back, some really quick feet to find a short target in back through the middle of the ground. But then that link-up chain handball, and the entry inside forward 50 was absolutely perfect to Georgiades.
Staring into the sun at the northern end. Their leading goal kicker for the campaign, Mitch Georgiadis, held to just 2 points against the Saints last week. Start in front of the Wanganeen stand. Georgiadis crosses the paint of 50, leans back, never in doubt. Port strike first. They're up one straight 6 to the Western Bulldogs, who are yet to score. 3 minutes into the opening term. Saturday footy on ABC Sport. Your experts. We've got 7 All-Australians between them. Josh Franco and Ebony Marinoff.
That was just an impressive bit of play. And you talk about Connor Rozee, he was involved 3 times. And that's just at his best with the twinkle feet and just work rate. He kept running and was actually involved in 3 handball chains and was able to execute a lovely finish. But that's what they're going to be needing. They need their stars to run off the half-back and break lines because they're dangerous when they do that.
And already the numbers, obviously we haven't played a lot in this first quarter, but the numbers well in favour of Port Adelaide. Contested footy, ground ball gets their clearances, 1 zip out of the centre square. At the moment, they're looking pretty sharp, Port Adelaide.
So Darcy in the ruck to go against Sweet. The umpire with a perfect bounce. Comes down to Treloar, and he'll break out of the centre with a bounce. Yeah, he's going to the right side of the field, so down to right half forward he goes. Bergman was there for Port Adelaide, knocked it away from Ugle-Hagan, who came again, got a hand pass out over the boundary line. Right half forward on this broadcast side of the ground for the Bulldogs. Gee, they're perfect conditions. Yes, there's a breeze, but that's about the only failure of the weather to turn up today.
Port by 6, toss back in. Darcy in the ruck up against Sweet, easily beaten by the power ruckman. Foundhorn Francis set upon by a couple of dogs and will get a ball up. Quick reset. Again, Sweet wins it down looking for Wines. Pulled it in with Treloar all over him, too high. Free kick to the Brownlow medalist who gives it off to Horn Francis. Thought about kicking but ran out of room. Goes inside to Lockie Jones with the handball who jukes it to Rozee. Dropped to one knee trying to gather. Did well under pressure to get it to Marshall. Now Burgoyne, the attacking edge of the square. Low and hard into the pocket again. Georgiadis back with the flight. Knows exactly where to run into. And they put it in his path as he reels it in. Tight in the pocket. 15 out.
Well, even looking at that sort of passage of play there, Port Adelaide just thought they overdid it by hands, but they were good enough to get out of it. And the kick inside 50 from Burgoyne didn't look like it was a great kick off the boot, but found Georgiadis.
Georgiadis opens the angle and snaps through his second. Port go bang bang. They're up by 12. The Dogs yet to score at the 5-minute mark of the opening term. Saturday footy on ABC Sport. Josh Money downstairs.
Big job for Miles Bergman today. He's got the job on Jamara Ugle-Hagan. Been playing on a wing for most of the year. We've seen him do jobs on Jeremy Cameron in the past and do it well, but he's got to be flexible today with Port a little undersized in defence.
Well, interesting as well. Just another non-matchup, if you like. Coming into the game, Bontempelli is probably the one, if I'm part of the Port Adelaide coaching staff, that you need to shut down. At the moment, they're just going head-to-head with him. At times, at stoppages, it's Horn Francis on him. It's Connor Rozee on him. So I'll sort of watch Bontempelli as the game progresses. If he starts to get off the chain, they may have to react and put a tag, potentially a Willem Drew on Bontempelli, who is the match breaker.
Great start for Port. 2 goals straight for a side that across the season has been less than accurate in front of goal, down around 41-42% effectiveness as Rozee comes out of the middle, spreads it wide to the wing. Burgoyne with a mark, hands it off, and running off half-back. They get it down to half-forward with a kick by Evans, and lob came over the top. Interesting to see the former big forward playing as a defender.
He's been everywhere, hasn't he? Different clubs, different positions.
Ruck, forward, back.
Yeah.
So the ball will come back into play. English will go in the ruck. And Sweet buffeted him. It came down to Richards. Hand pass out to Sanders around the corner, down towards centre wing. Ugle-Hagan the target. Alir came over the top, knocked it towards the boundary and just over, yes. As running away with it was McNeil. Thought he might have kept it in, but he didn't. Boundary umpire right on it. Right half forward again for the Bulldogs.
The hometown lad, Lockie McNeil, back into the side for the Dogs. Out of Woodville West Torrens. Be out there alongside Bailey Williams this afternoon in terms of the Crow Eaters. Tossed in, Port by 12. English won it down looking for Treloar. Whistle for a hold. Free kick to go to Big Tim. The ruckman on the 45 wasn't 15. His little dinky pass towards Bontempelli, who gives it back to him. And under the pressure as Port close, he's kicked it out of the full, Tim English. So a free kick to Port Adelaide, left half back, up by 12. Burgoyne will bring it in. Short pass to Rozee.
This will be his 8th disposal. 5 minutes gone in the first quarter.
Looking back to his prolific best already, just dancing out of the middle. composure as well in the stoppage as he shares it with Bergman. Across defensive 50 they go with the switch. Zirk Thatcher marks. And he'll pop it short to the presenting Butters. His second touch of the afternoon to the defensive edge of the square. Here's Narkle getting some full game time after starting the year as the sub. Looked good against the Saints last week, and another chance to back it up as he goes high through centre wing on the outer side.
And he set it up enough for English to come across and take the defensive mark. Marshall perhaps misjudged it in the pack for Port Adelaide, so English goes short to Liberatore. So they haven't gained, well, they might have gained a metre or two, but now they've gone back to where they started with another short pass. Caulfield thought about the hand pass, but still left half back out on the eastern side. Caulfield called a play on, goes high, looking for Norton. He ran under the ball. Over the back was Marshall for Port Adelaide. Went forward to Narkle. I don't think it was meant for him, but he took the mark anyway. Still close to the boundary line. He keeps it out to Butters with the short pass. Butters sitting between wing and half forward now. Looks inboard. Eventually, with the outside of the boot, goes to Marshall, just inside the boundary at right half forward.
So, arguably too far out to score on the angle. Todd Marshall searching for an option as the Bulldogs flood back. He'll go low to Rosie. What vision. The skipper's floated into the hole and he's hit him direct. 35 out, tight angle to the right.
Well, you can almost see from Port Adelaide's ball movement at the moment, they're just not willing to kick long and take risks. They're sort of pinpointing passes, and even that example there, that kick inside forward 50 to Connor Rosie, surrounded by 3 or 4 Western Bulldogs players, but a terrific little connect from Marshall.
So in 9 minutes, Connor Rosie is about to have his 9th touch. Kicks on the tight angle and misses for a minor score. 2-1-13 Port Adelaide. The Western Bulldogs yet to score, approaching the 10-minute mark. Saturday footy on ABC Sport. Over at the Docklands, the Roos have had the hot start. 2-1-13. They leave the Suns 1 behind. You can hear it on the ABC Listen app through the AFL button.
Lobb decides to try a torp and turns it over. Butters near the centre of the ground took the mark. On the ground he hand passes up to Houston. Inside forward 50 and wide, very wide. It bounced about a metre inside the boundary in that scoreboard pocket. And it'll get thrown in there, about 30 around from the goal face. Port Adelaide have started well. That's an understatement. 2-1-13. Bulldogs yet to score. In the sunshine at the Adelaide Oval, ball comes back into play. Treloar off the pack took it nicely. Hand pass out off his left foot. Williams down towards centre wing. Came to the front. Fighting there was Mead, taken down in a heavy tackle by Treloar, who's been prominent for the Dogs in the early stages. It's between centre wing and half forward on the eastern side of the ground for Port Adelaide.
They're up by 13. Sweet wins it down for them. Looking for Drew. He's caught in a couple of tackles. Bontempelli and Richards will go again. Quickly tossed in the air as English wins it down. Rosie waiting to pounce, couldn't control it. Sweet wrenches it out. Found Mead. Caught up by Williams and over the boundary line. On the text line, Carl from Adelaide is currently in the Maldives. Says, hey guys, no second honeymoon is going to keep me from listening in. Calm the power. Let's win because we want to, not because the other team plays worse. Looking good, Carl. Hope you're enjoying your holiday. Tossed in, Sweet down. And Drew gets the clearance. Hack kick off a step high. Caulfield was waiting for it. Cuts it off for the Dogs and now looks to switch across half back. Sanders puts it in the path of Lobb with a handball. And forward come Backman, goes long up the broadcast wing. Norton loses his feet up against Delia. Strong body work. And the intercept for the Power, up by 13.
Ball was about 25 metres away when he was pushed off there.
Norton. The same, Crossy. Yeah, I thought that potentially could have been a free kick.
Here's Rosie. Speaking of kicks, here's a kick for Rosie down to half forward. Georgiades on the lead up and then keeps it low inside forward 50 and unable to half volley it was Marshall, who had the lead on Karmas. But it's over the boundary line now and it'll be thrown in just inside attacking 50 for Port Adelaide. Still, you can hear the crowd. Little murmurs going around. They're happy with the start. Let's just see where we go from here. Ball comes back in. English gets the tap down. Severe hand pass that Richards was just able to handle. Now it's off to McRae. McRae with a boot down the line, looking for Ugle Hagen, who jumped all over Alir but couldn't take the mark. And virtually surrendered by Zirk Thatcher and Ugal Hagen, and then the umpire said, OK, we'll call that a tackle, throw it up.
We're just going back to that sort of kick mark method that Port Adelaide are using. Definitely come into the game with a plan. They've already had 19 marks in this first quarter, and we're only not even halfway through this first quarter as we speak. So definitely a plan coming in. Keep the ball, deny the ball going back into a scramble, which plays into the hands of the Western Bulldogs.
Voice there of 4-time showdown medalist Josh Franco. We've got 3-time premiership crow Ebony Marinoff in the box as well as it's tossed back in. Port by 13. Darcy with the double tap down, found Rosie. Another touch. Gives it to Butters, the dynamic duo. Across half back, very composed as he finds Evans. Marks uncontested. Looks to move it to Aaliyah. He's now at right half back. Stepped off his line under a bit of pressure, did well. Back to Butters at the defensive edge.
Very methodical here, Aaron.
Almost Brisbane-like. The kick mark, clean movement. Here's Lockie Jones. Up through the outer wing he goes, and Horn Francis is in open territory, can turn and race into the paddock, drives it into the pocket, nearly taken by Georgiadis. He's cleaned up a bit by Karmas. Bit of concern as well as he hits the deck. Obviously the ACL last year, but he's got back to his feet and will get a boundary throw in.
Well, it's been an impressive start from Port Adelaide, I think. Just the way they're moving the footy, then they've been able to use the hands at times, but they're really just trying to be able to execute going inside 50, which has given them good looks.
Off the throw in, cleared away by Richards outside 50, but picked up by Drew for Port Adelaide. Across the centre of the ground wasn't great for Logan Evans. He's able to knock it to Zirk Thatcher, who's under pressure from McNeil. Now it'll be, well, Butters. If it's not Butters, it's Rosie getting possession, or I should say if it's not Rosie, it's Butters. And they've moved it from one side to the other, and Burgoyne has it near the interchange gates, about 10 metres in. He goes back to Bergman. That was a dangerous centering ball.
Very risky kick. Came off, but very risky.
Took it ahead of McNeil. Now he plays on. Bergman's a big kick. He goes long and direct, and at the back, Karmas got it to ground, did pretty well. They're able to run it out through Dale. Forward hand pass, found Sanders. And Sanders involved twice. Now he's tackled by... He received the hand pass and was tackled straight away, and the umpire said that's holding the ball. So Burne-Jones got him, rolled him over. The umpire said he dropped it.
That's great forward pressure, and Port fans would be really excited to see that. Just not wanting to let the Bulldogs out. They were trying to handball chain, but some really good forward pressure to keep it inside 50 and rewarded with a free kick.
Well, Burne-Jones is not without a chance here. Now he's going to come in from outside 50 and also outside the boundary line. But he's only got to kick it maybe 45 metres, and the wind will help him, and the wind does help him, and there's a goal. Port Adelaide with the first three of the game, 3-1-19. The Bulldogs have yet to get off the donuts. 0-0-0 after 15 minutes of the opening quarter.
Well, Crossy, just to give the listeners some idea of how this game's unfolded, at the moment, now we're 9 minutes and 10 seconds of actual game time left in this first quarter. 64-35 possessions Port Adelaide's way. So the uncontested possessions 50-25 and the marks 26-10. So Port Adelaide at the moment are on track for about 150 marks, which is unheard of in the AFL. So as we said, definitely they've come into a plan, probably more so in their back 2/3 of the ground, to kick mark and not kick long and make the ball live back into a scramble, as we said, which plays into the hands of the Western Bulldogs. And at the moment, they're executing it superbly.
Josh Franco, Ebony Marinoff, your experts this afternoon. Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross calling the action, and it's Port by 19. Nice high bounce in the middle, but neither ruck gets a tap. Rosie to Wines. Horn Francis, little 1-2 as they link up. Now Drew can turn. Sends it inside 50. Kick in the direction of Lord, who brought down Karmas illegally. Rose into the air, trying to take the intercept mark, and was hoisted to the ground. Get the free kick. Now the right back pocket rather to Bramble, the former Hawk. Sun right behind him as he races along the boundary line around the man on the mark. Up to the broadcast when he goes. Ugal Hagen presented ahead of Evans. Clunks the mark. Leading goal kicker for the Dogs, far from home. On the 45 inside. Gives it to McRae, then back to Ugal Hagen on the defensive edge, and up the spine he goes. West outnumbered, and Zirk Thatcher launches. Entangled with Aaliyah, and it freed up the former Bomber to take the intercept mark for the Power. They're up by 19 over at the Docklands. The Roos lead the Suns by 12. You can hear it on the listen app. Poor kick from Zirk Thatcher to the corridor.
Have they turned it over? Not quite. Wines is able to get it on the ground. Slipped it to Rosie. Poor hand pass at the feet of his teammate in Finlayson. Got it out of there somehow. Boak's on the ground. He couldn't, or he got a clean possession away. But his teammate was immediately under pressure, and Liberatore made the tackle on Farrell and forced the ball up.
We speak about heading into this game with Bontempelli. He's only had the 2 touches for the game, and Connor Rosie with 13 and Zach Butters with 8. And Ollie Wines with 7, so winning the midfield battle at the moment.
Off the contest, though, that was one for McRae, inside half forward. Portal coming up away through Bergman. He gets it towards centre wing. Marshall couldn't pull down the ball. Crowd wanted a free kick. O'Donnell was in there, went towards the boundary line and eventually over. I don't think he knew as he put his head down where the direction he was intending to go was. Fortunately for him, it was over the boundary line throw in. Out on the eastern side, Crowd up and about, Port up and about. They lead by 19.
Well, Ebony, you talk about Bontempelli, just the 2 disposals. Liberatore's only had 2, Treloar only the 4, so they're prime movers, not having an impact at all in this first quarter.
Saturday footy on ABC Sport, volleyed out of the boundary throw-in, up towards Treloar. He's wrapped up by Wines, got a kick away as it tumbles towards Liberatore, who dumped Rosie. Heavy tackle, free kick. And the power skipper's about to have disposal 15.
He's on track for 60.
What's the intriguing part of it? It's 11 uncontested. So,
Yeah.
you know, he's getting it by himself, but just got to be a level of accountability from the Bulldogs mids.
On the text line, Mike from South Melbourne, who's currently in a van east of Cooper Pedy, says Rosie is a god. He's looking pretty good early. Back to Zerk Thatcher and now Aaliyah at centre half back. They've switched, heading towards the broadcast side of the ground. Evans presents. Bit too long on the kick. It bounces in front of him under a bit of pressure. Vandermeer got there, wrapped up in the tackle, but he keeps fighting the dog. Shrugs off Farrell. Vandermeer inside 50. Darcy rises above Zerk Thatcher. Put it on his head, and the young man launched to receive it.
And even that passage of play, once again, Port Adelaide looking to switch the ball in the defence to spread the ground and then try to get the ball in a kick mark chain, and unfortunately just not able to execute there, caused the turnover. And Darcy, I tell you what, this bloke can play footy. The more I see him, the more I like him. Needs to go back and finish, because at the moment, yet to hit the scoreboard, the Western Bulldogs.
23 goals already. The 20-year-old Sam Darcy gets close to the man on the mark, sprays it left from 25 out. Through for a minor score on the left-hand side. It's the Dogs' first score of the afternoon. Comes at the 20-minute mark. Port 3-1-19, the Dogs 1 behind. Saturday footy on ABC Sport.
Here goes Farrell, plays on, and then casually kicks it some 60 metres to centre wing. Off hands though, the Dogs work it. And it comes to Bramble, who goes down to half forward and finds Vandermeer. He's got Bailey Williams running outside. He elects to go with the long kick towards the top of the square. Oh, Ugle-Hagan threw out a hand and then secured it on his chest. The contested mark, 15 metres out.
Well, again, another probably example of why Port Adelaide are going to that kick mark. We saw Farrell play on from the behind. He kicked long and you think, wow, that's a great kick. Got a lot of territory. Hit the wing, this almost the logo on centre wing, but Port Adelaide weren't able to get the job done at ground level. Rebounded, shot on goal, Ugle-Hagan.
Well, given the evidence so far, it would be a crucial goal to that end of the ground, and he has fluffed his lines and kicked it off the instep for the minor score from 15 out. So the Dogs with 2 behinds on the board, trailing Port Adelaide 3-1-19. We're 21 minutes into the opening quarter.
Short kick this time, Farrell.
Finds Mead. Called to play on as he steps off his line, so he'll load up to the outer side. They converge on the logo. Karmas got above them with a big fist. Spilled to the back though, and Burne-Jones was there. Tumbles it towards Finlayson. It's low on his bootlaces. He can't quite get down, the big man, so he knocks it forward. Georgiadis had 4 to beat, and Bontempelli wins out. Got it to Treloar for the Dogs. And now O'Donnell to the outer side. Kick a little wide of Liberatore, and he's running out of room as it rolls towards the boundary line. Scores level at the Docklands. Sam Day with a double up. Makes it 3-1-19 apiece. Time on there. You can hear it on the ABC Listen app.
So, well into time on now. Dogs have struggled into the breeze in the opening quarter. Port Adelaide have been quite good. Off the ruck contest, Butters soccers at top of the 50. Finlayson couldn't lay a hand on it. Bontempelli, who claimed he was held, play on, called the umpire. It's off to Farrell. Inside 50, stabs the ball. Georgiades got rid of his man, got back on it in the left forward pocket, looks around, can centre up, had a couple of targets, missed them all. Dogs will come away. Intercept mark taken by Gallagher. Now they work it to Richards through the hands. Bontempelli involved as well. Richards are left-footed, and he just dodged inside from Butters. He got almost to centre wing, then to half forward. Over the back, picked up by Alia near the boundary line and over eventually. Well disguised as he tried to handball to Bergman. So left half forward for the Dogs.
Crossy, I reckon Georgiades probably guilty of being too unselfish on that occasion. I thought he should have had a snap on goal. Dodged two Western Bulldogs defenders, tried to centre it, but probably should have had a snap himself.
And Travis Boak, a little bit unselfish as well, wanted Zach Butters to take the mark and neither did, but God, they got out of jail then, but it was excellent pressure from Port Adelaide just to hold the Bulldogs up and get a stoppage inside.
Thoughts of Premiership Crow, Ebony Marinoff, All-Australian mid Josh Franco, Port by 17 and out of the stoppage. Big tackle from Boak on Richards. Frees up the power. Little 1-2 from Butters to Evans and hooks it around the body up to Wines. Marks in front of the Williams stand and has a runner. It's Butters who's just kept going. He and Rosie dominating this opening term, and the kick is perfect to Jones. Now to Mead, drives it too hard over the head of Finlayson, but waiting at the back is Lord. Under pressure, he's missed. Beautiful defensive effort from Lobb to close him down, and the Miners score the first or second blemish of the afternoon for the Power. 3-2-20. They lead the Dogs 2 behinds, approaching quarter time. Saturday footy on ABC Sport.
Tell you what, the two kicks from Zach Butters there, absolutely outstanding. One from the stoppage under pressure, then to hit, I think it was sort of Jones in the middle of the ground to create that inside 50. Superb.
Dogs have worked at the half back, but they've turned it over. Burn Jones, just a little pressure on his man and got it away. Inside 50 with a kick. Oh, Lord, couldn't take it. Lobb came late, knocked it to ground. Picked up by Sweet. He couldn't get a clean disposal away. Narkle comes in, rolls over the ball. Now he makes solid tackle on West, who's over the ball and forces a ball up. Left forward pocket for the Power, keeping it inside 50.
Tossed into the air, 35 out, Sweet to Wines, Burn Jones, sidesteps, back to the Brownlow medalist. Port Adelaide's on fire. He snaps true from 20 out. Wines is first of the afternoon, Port Adelaide's fourth. They're up by 24 points. 4-2, 26 to 2 behinds, 25 minutes in. Saturday footy on ABC Sport. Your experts, All-Australian midfielders, Josh Franco and Ebony Marinoff.
Oh, it's been an impressive start. I think just the ability to have the handball chains and have players keep showing up to the contest has really, I guess, caught the Bulldogs' pressure off guard, and that's a fine finish. Super impressive with their ability to keep hold of the footy and make better decisions to the next one, best in line.
And yeah, it was outstanding from Port Adelaide, but equally as poor from the Western Bulldogs. Ollie Wines unattended, no one within probably a couple of metres of him at that stoppage. And at the moment, Port Adelaide are dominating the hit-outs 14-4. So when you have the dominance in the ruck, you've got to get some body on your opponent, especially inside your D50, as Western Bulldogs were on that occasion.
Plus 10 Port Adelaide in contested possessions, plus 3 in the clearances as well. They get another clearance out of the middle. They go long inside forward 50, no mark taken. Comes to ground, Lobb just got a ball forward. Now they scramble out of there through O'Donnell wide with a hand pass to Gallagher. Then he goes back to Caulfield, tries to clear the area. He does, but only just. Sweet takes it across the line for Port Adelaide. We'll get a throw in. It's at right half forward for the Power.
Again, looking at some of the numbers, it's just an absolute shellacking from Port Adelaide. Disposals 109 to 64. Inside 50s 15 to 5. It's staggering.
Up by 24. Saturday footy on ABC Sports. Sweet wins it down. Bounces off a couple of shins and Wines quickly releases it towards the scoreboard pocket. Up and under. Too shallow for Finlayson. On the text line, Tim in Applecross says, great call, team. Josh Franco would have made a beautiful blue. They thought about playing for the Baggers?
Oh. No.
No.
Wouldn't mind being in their side now, though.
Toss back into play. It's nice and high. English collides with Sweet. The Dog wins the tap down. Butters pounces. Handball wasn't clean, though. Turning out of the stoppage, he gave it to Richards. Underground one. Back to English. caught in a sandwich and brought to ground 45 out.
Well, I'll tell you what, I reckon Luke Beveridge will come down and eyeball some of his leaders at quarter time, in particular Treloar, Bontempelli, Liberatore, just not having an impact at all.
Sweet down to Rosie. Rushes the kick. Tumbler up towards Dale. He's been quiet as well. Hands it to Treloar. Now the exit for the Dogs through Bramble. Cut off by Evans. Brought it to ground. Liberatore front and square. Kick smothered for the Dogs. Farrell now for the power. Gets it to Evans. Rosie tried to race around Gallagher, who stuck an arm out. Brought him to ground, but it wasn't exactly a tackle, so no free kick. They get away with it. Boat to Sweet. Snaps around the body from 55. It tumbles its way into the pocket and knocked over 15 out.
Tell you one other thing they'll be pleading with some of their mids is, can someone please go and stand on Connor Rosie? 18 disposals in this first quarter. He's absolutely doing as he pleases.
Bontempelli's got him at this stoppage. Sweet took the ball out of the ruck, I should say. It was knocked out of his hands. Now on the ground, Mead comes through. He's tackled by Treloar. We'll get a ball up. As you were, just a different form of stoppage. English with a tap down to Bontempelli. Got him. McRae had the hands free. Umpire says holding the ball.
Good decision.
That's that new rule,
Yep.
and it's great because when you've got your arms lifted, you have ability to either get it on the boot like Zach Butters did previously or take a handball. I really like it, and it's been consistent over the past couple of weeks. Umpires are hot on it.
Bailey Dale, in fact, was the man. Yeah, put the hands up. 2 tacklers. Butters says, give it to me. My free kick.
Yeah, just looking at the replay, free kick every day of the week, wasn't it? Good decision from the umpire.
So, Butters well inside 50, perhaps only 20 metres out, almost back to the arc is where he's gone back, just taking his time. Late in the opening quarter, Port Adelaide have dominated, and they've got that result on the scoreboard as well. They move along to 5-2-32. The Bulldogs with just no answers at the moment. They're being overwhelmed. They've just got 2 behinds on the board, and we are approaching 30 minutes in the opening term.
Well, interestingly, again, I'm just looking at some of the numbers and the absolute dominant display from Port Adelaide, and it hasn't been just a million miles an hour footy. It has been with a fair bit of method, and we talked about their marks for the first quarter. They're currently running at 32, Port Adelaide. So as we said, they've definitely come in with a plan to deny the Western Bulldogs the footy and trying to minimise the time the ball's live so that the Western Bulldogs can get their game going. And Port Adelaide have executed it superbly, albeit with absolutely zero resistance from the Western Bulldogs. And as we said, there's only 3 seconds left in this first quarter. I reckon you'll see some of the Western Bulldogs coaching staff run straight out and grab those leaders and put some heat on them to get going.
Purely for the stats here, Sweet taps it down, and that'll take us to quarter time. So Port Adelaide up by 30. Listen to the joy as well from the Power faithful after what's been a pretty tricky fortnight for this footy club. A lot of angst around the supporter group, but back on its feet after the victory over St Kilda. And it's won its 11th first quarter of the campaign. One of the better teams to do it. 11-1-4. The Western Bulldogs moved to 8-8 in opening terms. The goal scorers at quarter time. Mitch Georgiadis has 2. Singles to Butters, Wines and Burn-Jones. And the Western Bulldogs, for the second time this campaign, are goalless at quarter time. 5-2-32 to 2 behinds. Over at the Docklands, the Suns have fought back after their slow start and now lead North Melbourne by 12. 5-1-31 to 3-1-19. If you do want to hear it, jump on the ABC Listen app and hit the AFL button. Anthony in Wild Dog Valley's texted in and actually said who is calling the game down the highway. It's an elite team for you if you want to hear it. Corbin Middlemass, Ben Cameron, Adam Ramanaskas, Luke Ball there. But we've got just as good big names here in our box. Josh Franco, Ebony Marinoff, games record holders, all Australians, showdown medals. So stick with us, Anthony, if you can. He's doing his winter gardening, has the fire pit on, and looking forward to Geelong and Hawthorn to come this afternoon. So you'll hear that from 4:30 Eastern Standard Time. And then tonight we've got the Giants and Carlton and Fremantle and Richmond as your doubleheader for Saturday footy on ABC Sport. Port Adelaide by 30. It's great to have you with us on ABC Radio, Sport Digital and the ABC Listen app.
The ABC Tennis Podcast is your Australian serve of tennis all year round, be it on grass, clay or hard court. Join myself, Catherine Murphy, and former Australian tennis players John Millman and John Alexander as we unpack results and storylines from the Grand Slams and beyond. It's the podcast Australia's Alex Demonor listens to.
I know Alex is a big listener to the ABC Tennis Podcast.
Find the ABC Tennis Podcast on the ABC Listen app.
This is ABC Sports coverage of the 2024 AFL season. Every match on the ABC Listen app.
Look for the AFL button.
The skipper for the Power sends it into the scoreboard pocket, perfectly weighted to Georgiadis. Georgiadis crosses the paint of 50, leans back, never in doubt. Port strike first. Now Burgoyne, the attacking edge of the square, low and hard, into the pocket again, Georgiadis. Back with the flight, knows exactly where to run into. Georgiadis opens the angle and snaps through his second. Port go bang bang.
They're able to run it out through Dale. Forward hand pass, found Sanders. And Sanders involved twice. Now he's tackled straight away and the umpire said that's holding the ball. So Burne-Jones got him. Burne-Jones is not without a chance here. He's only going to kick it maybe 45 metres and the wind will help him. And the wind does help him and there's a goal. Port Adelaide with the first three of the game.
Tossed into the air, 35 out, sweet to Wines, Burne-Jones, sidesteps, back to the Brownlow medalist. Port Adelaide's on fire.
The 2024 AFL Premiership season.
On your radio.
ABC Sport Digital.
And on the ABC Listen app.
Someone's flicked on the generator. The Power is surging at the Adelaide Oval. They're up by 30 points. 5-2-32. The Western Bulldogs just the two behinds at the first change. Saturday footy on ABC Sport. Great to have you with us for this call and what is going to be one of many 8-point games across the back half of this campaign. It's a thrilling run home on ABC Sport. You can hear it all through the ABC Listen app. Aaron Bryans and Neil Cross calling the action to break it all down. Games record holder in the AFLW, Ebony Marinoff, and All-Australian midfielder Josh Franco. And Josh, you were bang on the money. Luke Beveridge has charged out to his troops and brought them straight in for a spray.
Yeah, well, normally when the siren goes, you come and get into your forwards, mids and backs lines, but Luke Beveridge did a hamstring getting out to his players, called them in, and we couldn't obviously see it. We're a little bit too far away, but I reckon there would have been a few expletives as well going on there to tell his players and probably imploring the leaders of the group to get going, because at the moment they're having virtually no impact. And this is probably backed up by some of the numbers. So these are crazy numbers in terms of first quarter, and it just highlights the dominance of Port Adelaide. So disposals 117-70. So that's 47 more touches to Port Adelaide. Contested ball plus 11. Ground ball gets plus 8 to hit out. So they're absolutely dominating the Bulldogs around the stoppages. Plus 10 in hit outs and plus 7 in clearances. The inside 50, 17-5. The tackle count's the only statistics that the Bulldogs are actually currently winning, and that's a plus 9, and that highlights the fact that they just don't have the ball in their hands. Port Adelaide, on the other hand, they've been very, very methodical in the way that they've built the ball in their back two-thirds of the ground. A lot of kick mark. They've currently had 32 marks to quarter time, so they're on track for 130 marks for the duration of the game, which, again, is a cricket score. The stoppages, Port Adelaide have been outstanding as well. And Ebony, we spoke about Rosie, Butters and Wines. At the moment, they have 18, 14 and 13 touches respectively. So they need to clamp at least one of them down. Rosie's probably been the main instigator of Port Adelaide at the moment. Time to put the clamps on him.
Absolutely, and you speak about those clearances. I mean, it's 14-7, and obviously Port Adelaide have had a lot more of the footy. But what's an interesting one is the contested possessions. They're still up, and the uncontested possessions, they're just getting that handball chain. And the pressure, I mean, you'd hope that Bulldogs were winning the tackle count, but they really need to up the pressure. And reality is that the Port mids are able to do whatever they want in that first quarter, and it really shown.
And I think another thing as well, what the Western Bulldogs need to do when they're defending Port Adelaide's ball movement, if it's a held ball, forget about zoning. It's almost going back to one-on-one, and they'll give you opportunities to turn the footy over. But at the moment, it's Port Adelaide dictating terms.
The Power by 30, Saturday footy on ABC Sport. High bounce in the middle, neither ruck decides to launch for it. Ricochets off the face of Sweet down towards Rosie, and he gets the clearance as it bounces to Marshall, charging out of the goal square, around the body, tries to find Georgiadis. It clean bowls Karmas, who raced to the drop. Lob was there at the back, and gee, looks good in defence. Kick out a defensive 50, rolls towards the boundary line, and Houston escorts it over. Have you liked that move, Josh? He had 12 intercepts around high last week.
I don't mind it.
Yeah.
Obviously, no Jones and no Keith. They're looking for some tall timber back there to settle the ship, and he's done it well.
The tall timber and the rucks go at it. Comes down to Richards. Liberatore doing his best in the scrum, got it out to Williams, who then gave it to Treloar. Left foot round the corner. Aaliyah got rid of Norton. Umpire said it was touched somewhere in transit, and so we'll get a ball up. So just ahead of that logo on centre wing out there on the eastern side of the ground. Sweet with a knockdown. Treloar got a possession. Scrambled kick. So there's a ground ball for Farrell, who went to 360, and the umpire said no.
Probably the only...
Worth another ball up.
Yeah, the only thing that saved him was possibly no try there, but I thought it could have been holding the ball.
Port by 30, out of the stoppage. Liberatore had an arm pinned by Wines and still got boot to ball. High up to centre half forward. Gallagher was underneath it, but put it down and caught in a couple of tackles. Over at the Docklands, quarter time there, the Suns by 12 over the Roos. You can hear it on the ABC Listen app through the AFL button. Sweet down, ricochets off of Gallagher to Dale. Quick kick as he thumps it towards the 50. Bounces awkwardly for Lockie Jones. McRae there got a handball out to Richards. Under pressure, found Bontempelli, the champion with the check side. From 30 out. Bonts on the board. And the Dogs have their first of the afternoon. Comes second minute mark of the second term. Western Bulldogs 1-2-8, Port Adelaide 5-2-32. Saturday footy on ABC Sport. 7 All-Australian Blazers in the box. Josh Franco, Ebony Marinoff.
Well, Luke Beveridge would be a happy man up in the box because, again, that's probably your Ollie Wines in the previous quarter. Bontempelli left unattended at a forward 50 contest, and hopefully he can get this Bulldogs midfield started.
Yeah, one thing Port Adelaide have done pretty well, we mentioned it pre-game briefly, that the Western Bulldogs do like to flick the ball around by hand, so they have denied them their ability to be able to do that. But I guess on the other side of the coin, as you said, Ebony, you leave probably the best player in Australia with a bit of time and space inside forward 50, and he'll hurt you, and he did on that occasion to Port Adelaide.
Well, to be American about it, best player in the world, isn't it?
Yeah, cool.
So, out of the middle, Bontempelli got a little touch. Picked up by Liberatore off the Richards. The big left foot goes long. Norton going back. Couldn't get to the right position. And he thought it was touched. That's what his complaint was.
And this is where the Western Bulldogs have to shut down Port Adelaide's kick mark, because this is what they're going to try to do.
So Zirk Thatcher with the intercept mark. Gave it off to Bergman, and Bergman had to play on. It was too short a kick. Gave it back to Zirk Thatcher. Clears the area and clears the boundary as well. Turnover. Dogs to take the free kick through McRae.
Yuck, that was an awful bit of play there from Port Adelaide. Probably got thrown off by that little kick from Zirk Thatcher being called play on.
McRae sends it into the 50. The pack converges, collapses. Waiting at the front was Ugle-Hagan. He snaps hard. The angle curls across the face of the goal. And waiting was Drew and 50. Giray wouldn't step back to the required 10 metres. So Drew will be marched towards the defensive 50 paint. And he'll be held up at centre half back. Port Adelaide by 24.
And once again, sorry to interrupt there. These are the chains that Western Bulldogs have to shut down. These uncontested mark chains.
Drew to Butters. Disposal 14 as he rolls it towards the centre square. Farrell back to Drew, and now Butters again. Number 15 hits Zirk Thatcher, defensive edge of the square. Races around Darcy. Gives it to Farrell. Bit of speed, but didn't know where he was going. Had to pull up against McRae. Now closing is McNeil. Gets a kick and finds Mead. Then Burn-Jones lowers the eyes and hits Sweet on the chest. 40 out, slide angle to the right. And just like that, the prolific ball movement from Port sets up a chance at goal.
And once again, it was it was low risk from Port Adelaide. The switch from Butters to then find, I think it was Farrell here on the wing, and just that little kick inside forward 50 under immense pressure, being able to find the target. And at the moment, the Western Bulldogs look powerless to do anything about it. They can't engage their direct opponent and shut down this uncontested mark chain.
Just the 2 goals in his career, Jordan Sweet, the big man, straight approach, beautiful strike. He's got his first in teal. And they come from everywhere to celebrate with him. Port Adelaide answers back, and they're up by an equal game high 30. 6-2-38 to the Dogs, 1-2-8. 5 minutes into the second term. Saturday footy on ABC Sport. Your experts 4-time Showdown medalist Josh Franco, 3-time Premiership Crow Ebony Marinoff.
God, Zach Butt is impressive. He hit that on his left foot to change angles, but that's been super impressive today with the ability to change angles and not go down the line and catch the Bulldogs' defence off guard. Just using the football a lot better. And like you said, Josh, the method, there looks like a lot of method to Port Adelaide today.
I just got a text off a mate. It was a photo. There was a sack hen Hinkley on Port Road. Now it's a sign there saying sign him up for another 5 years. This is a masterclass from Port Adelaide as we speak. They are playing a terrific brand of footy, and Western Bulldogs at the moment are nowhere.
Sweet, who was recruited out of the Bulldogs to Port Adelaide, and there's a free kick out of the middle. And it'll go to Wines. Immediate hand pass off to Horn Francis. He accelerates. Nobody can catch him. Inside 50, the kick was poor. And the intercept mark taken by Caulfield. Blessed relief. Former St Kilda player Caulfield. Just taking his time. Goes down the eastern side.
Hasn't played much footy over the years due to injury, and his kick's a little long over the back of the pack, and the only person who knew it was going there was Vandermeer. Turns for the Dogs, inside 50, one-on-one. McNeil edges Bergman, trying to gather at the back, but it gets an awkward bounce. And Lockie Jones can gather. Turns through the defensive goal square and spots both the veteran in game 361. He'll chip it across, a little treacherously to Mead, but he did well with West right behind him. The out-of-contract son of a gun will switch through defensive 50. Bergman uses Aaliyah in the scoreboard pocket. Port Adelaide by 30 at the moment. The text line 0437 774 774. Gaza says, another great day listening to ABC Sport, driving from Melbourne to Adelaide. It'll be a nice trip in the beautiful sunshine.
Port Adelaide through the corridor again, and then a wide kick from Houston found Horn Francis. He dropped it into Boak at half forward. 65 from goal, took the mark. Right against the boundary line, centres up, free as a bird.
This is embarrassing.
Was Mead, and he took the mark inside 50, 45 out, virtually straight in front.
Well, I tell you what, if you're a Western Bulldog supporter, this is an embarrassing display at the moment. Once again, it's been a masterclass in, I guess, the method that Port Adelaide wanted to come into the game with, and they're executing it superbly. The kick mark, trying to spread the ground. And I guess equally as poor as the Western Bulldogs' ability to be able to defend Port Adelaide's ball movement. And it's been relatively low risk.
So Mead will kick into the breeze, but you get the protection of that huge riverbank stand. So we'll see what his distance is like. Right on 50, and he's going to go away to the right. Just overstretching for the minor score, but that extends the lead to 31 points for Port Adelaide. Just down to the boundary to Josh Money.
Crossy, Aaron Norton's gone down to the Bulldogs' rooms. Looked like he got a bit of a knock to his nose. I'll keep you posted.
Western Bulldogs head to right half back. Kick from Dale to Treloar. Having a career best season. Down the line to Darcy. From young to old to young, I should say. Marks ahead of Aaliyah and then hands it off to Treloar. Sidesteps Rosie. Broke his ankles in the process. Hard up towards right half forward, though the kick was poor. Straight to Logan Evans. Port Adelaide again. Mop it up with an intercept. Across defensive 50. Burgoyne to the broadcast wing, and Lobb knew exactly where he was kicking to. Raced almost like a key forward, leading out in front of Lord, and takes the intercept mark. His kick is horrific. Squared it up straight to Marshall. Port Adelaide now on the counter punch. Marshall to Houston. Right half forward, Georgiadis, empty 50, dancing, dodging, heads for home. Lost his balance and misses to the right-hand side. Didn't really know what to do, trying to get around Dale. And it's a minor score, Port by 32 at the 9-minute mark. Saturday footy on ABC Sport.
Dale burned some rubber then trying to turn to find where Georgiades was, but in the end, the Port Adelaide player inaccurate with his kick. So Dale with ball in hand sends it short to out onto the eastern side of the ground, and then the free kick for Williams for front on contact. And so Williams lines up just 5 metres inside the boundary on the eastern side of the ground. After Liberatore dropped it short to him, and the ball dropping short on the long kick, and there was holding in the pack, and so Bontempelli will take the free kick after Zirk Thatcher had to surrender it. Goes long with his kick, Ugle-Hagan had a hand on the ball, couldn't take it. Jones tries to go short for Port Adelaide. It works in the end. Zerk Thatcher picked it up, gave it away to Logan Evans into the corridor. Dangerous kick, picked off.
So the Dogs have it. Lockie Bramble just forward of the centre circle. Drives it with a searing kick into the scoreboard pocket. Not sure who to. In the hole, Zerk Thatcher all alone. Takes the intercept mark once again.
Once again, it's one of those, is it a poor kick or are the forwards poor in not being able to bring the ball to ground? I reckon a bit of both there. The Western Bulldogs forwards just giving up, I guess, the block and not being able to impact that marking contest.
Kicking efficiency isn't too drastic. Port Adelaide 68% to the Dogs 56%, but feels worse than does. Meanwhile, there's a 50-metre penalty. Port Adelaide chipping it through defensive 50. Zerk Thatcher had it in the scoreboard pocket and Vandermeer overstepped. So he'll be marched to centre half back.
Well, kicking efficiency this quarter further to the Aaron is at the moment Western Bulldogs 52%, Port Adelaide 72% in this second quarter.
So switching to the broadcast side, the kick from Lockie Jones had plenty on it. Far too heavy for Butters and out on the full. Free kick to Gallagher, Port by 32. The Docklands, North Melbourne back in front over the Suns by 7. You can't hear that on the ABC Listen app. Gallagher to Giray and now Richards on the logo. Still on the broadcast side, spots McRae floating forward. The 3-time All-Australian. About 70 out. Flares it in towards Ugle-Hagan, crunching him as Zerk Thatcher hits the deck towards Evans for the power. Now Rosie, beautiful chain out of pressure. Butters left it behind though, picked up by Liberatore, wants to go on his own from 45 on the left, misses. Minor score on the right hand side. The Dogs 1-3-9, Port 6-4-40. 12 minutes into the second term. Saturday footy on ABC Sport. Your experts, Josh Franco and Ebony Marinoff.
Well, even looking at some of the numbers would be a little bit more, I guess, inviting for the Western Bulldogs coaching staff at the moment. Contested possessions, they're leading clearances, they're leading the ground ball gets. At the moment, uncontested possessions are hurting the Western Bulldogs.
Houston from the kick in, pierced a kick to Wines, and now they've gone back through the corridor again. Results in Butters, down to half forward. At centre half forward was Boak, turns around on the right foot, inside 50, leading up. Lord couldn't take it. It was interfered with front on by Gallagher, who ended up dumped on the ground, but Lord will take the free kick. It's at a 45-degree angle, 35 metres out.
Once again, the Western Bulldogs just unable to slow Port Adelaide down. I know it sounds like a broken record, but once they come back through the corridor, they stream hard forward, and at the moment they're, you said, their kicking efficiency this quarter 74%. They're able to hit targets and create scoring opportunities and connects inside their forward 50.
Well, Lord with 3-2 for the season. And comes in, starts there to the left, and it just sneaks inside the post. So Lord has another one. Port 7 on the board, 7-4-46. The Dogs getting a hammering. They've just got no answers. 1-3-9. We've gone through 13 minutes of the second term. Josh Money is on the boundary for ABC Sport.
Yeah, Crossy, and just to add to the Bulldogs' worries, still no sign of Aaron Norton, still down in the Bulldogs' room getting that nose patched up. You wonder, given the length of time he spent down there, whether he also needs a concussion test as well.
Again, that just all started from the halfback from Narkle. Just the handball chain through the corridor. You'd almost think Gallagher had it was a great contest, but was just facing Ollie Lord there, so was able to give that free kick away. But you almost sense that Port Adelaide fans love Ollie Lord. A massive cheer after that goal.
AFLW Games record holder Ebony Marinoff there. ABC Footballer of the Year Josh Franco alongside me, Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross calling the action. Port Adelaide by 37, and they'll get another exit out of the middle. Wines to Rosie, arches the back. From centre half forward, heads to the goal square. Marshall launched early. Didn't drop for him and rolls through for a minor score on the left-hand side. Port by 38. Now the Docklands, North by 13 over the Suns. And on the text line, this listener hasn't sent in their name, but says the Dogs will come back and win this without doubt. The main reason being Port Adelaide isn't tagging Bontempelli. He's had 3 this quarter. Hasn't really been impactful.
Plenty of time left in the match. No, that's the good news for the Dogs fan. Darcy on centre wing, that wasn't good news. He was taken down in a strong tackle, and the umpire, well, he didn't penalise Darcy. Aaliyah picked up the ball, thought it might have been a free kick, stopped, and he was tackled. McNeil will take the free kick for the Dogs on the logo. Crowd not particularly happy with that decision. So the short pass finds Duray. Now Duray called a play on, off his left foot. Inside forward 50, into the pocket, and Logan Evans pulls down a strong pack mark defensively for Port Adelaide.
And again, really poor from the Western Bulldogs forwards. I think Hugo Hagen's actually standing the mark. He was there in that contest, had to bring the ball to ground, but didn't.
The brashness of Evans as he darts past Hugo Hagen and sends it up the outer wing. Ball hits the deck and Rosie can thrust a handball over the top to Boak. Turns on the boundary line and looks inside to Butters. They've got all the runners. Burn-Jones released. Up towards the pocket, kick was a little shallow and it rolls through the legs, almost nutmegging Georgiadis. Rolls over the boundary line. Riverbank stand end. Right-hand side of your radio dial, Port by 38.
And I guess the most disappointing thing at the moment in this point of the game for the Western Bulldogs is that season's on the line here. We spoke about it pre-game. Huge riding on the result of this game, but once again, they've hardly put up a resistance at all.
Dogs have lost their last 3 games at the Adelaide Oval by an average of 12 points. It's considerably more than that at the moment. They get the ball down to centre wing. Drew taken down in a tackle by Hugo Hagen, which was high, so Drew will take the free kick. Port Adelaide will go forward yet again. Comes back on the logo. No short available. Now there is. Spots up Houston, right at centre half forward. He then flares into the pocket, and Georgiadis has ball in hand again. Good mark ahead of Karmas. Bit going on between Lord and Lob off the ball, but Georgiadis will go back and have a look at his 3rd of the afternoon.
Well, I tell you what, you can't take anything away from that kick from Houston. That was what you would call absolutely perfect. 50-metre kick, just lobbed it enough, and that was a deliberate kick to Georgiadis. It wasn't by luck, it was an absolutely magnificent finish inside 50 from Houston.
There's a boot lying out there that's astray from one of the players. Meanwhile, Georgiadis from 15 out, no problems. 3 for Port Adelaide's key forward. And the key to the game is Port Adelaide are running and the Bulldogs have no answers. Port Adelaide 8-5-53. Western Bulldogs 1-3-9 after 17 minutes of the second quarter on ABC Sport. Josh Franco and Ebony Marinoff, your experts. First though down to Josh Money on the boundary.
When it rains, it pours for the Bulldogs. Joel Frazier, the Bulldogs sub, is warmed up. He's just taken the warm-up top off. So you do wonder if he's about to come into this game. Aaron Norton has returned from the rooms, but you do wonder if his involvement in the game is finished for today.
You question the Western Bulldogs defence. You know, William Drew just had all the time in the world to find another Port Adelaide player in Dan Houston. And around that forward arc, you don't want Dan Houston kicking that footy inside 50 if you're Bulldogs fans. They've just got to be better. Too many times today, Port Adelaide have just been able to kick chain.
Saturday footy on ABC Sport. Port by 44 as English wins it down and Liberatore will get the clearance. Pushed as he kicked high towards the 50. Sanders there, knocked to ground. Gathered there by West. Handball looking for Bontempelli. He's sandwiched in a couple of hip and shoulders. Rosie buffets it towards Boak. Back as he retreats to Bergman. Down the line on the broadcast wing looking for Horn Francis. The two blondes can't combine and it's cut off. McNeil towards Dale. Deep kick into the 50 for the Dogs. Aaliyah there though. Gathered on the volley. Caught in the tackle. Dropped it. And the umpire says holding the ball. Free kick. 35 out straight in front for the Dogs. And it will be handed to Riley West.
Well, once again, I think it was another good decision from the umpire. Aaliyah took possession of the footy and he did have prior opportunity and couldn't get rid of it.
So Riley West had a 10-goal run where he kicked at least a goal for the Dogs. That ended last week. West comes in, straight as an arrow. And he's back on the goal kickers list. The margin back down to 38. Port 8-5-53. The Dogs 2-3-15, approaching time on in the second term. Saturday footy on ABC Sport. Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, Josh Franco, Ebony Marinoff, and Josh Money with you downstairs.
Huge blow for the Bulldogs. Aaron Norton is done for the day with this head injury, presumably concussion. Joel Frazier, the sub, is on the field and has taken his place in this game now, but their chances of reeling this margin back have taken a big hit with no Aaron Norton.
Absolutely, Josh. And just looking at the scores this quarter, Port Adelaide have kicked 3 goals, 3. Western Bulldogs 2 goals, 1. All the KPIs in terms of contested ball, ground ball gets some clearances in favour of the Western Bulldogs, but where they're getting really found out at the moment is the uncontested stuff and the uncontested mark chains that Port Adelaide are manufacturing, which off the back of that they're able to get their ball movement going.
Time on in the second quarter, and the job is all there for the Dogs as Duray brings it out of the middle. Houston takes it out of mid-air with the kick, gets it down to half forward for Port Adelaide. Burne-Jones, a fresh air kick on the ground. Ball that's still floating around. Mead came out with it, gave it to Wines, chipped it over the top. It was about a 4-metre kick, and it was an even worse hand pass. Came from Vandermeer, but the Dogs turn it into something. They get it forward to Liberatore, goes down to centre half forward. Lob's been sent to centre half forward. That's been the move, and he can't take a mark, but he brought it to ground and forced the ball up.
Port by 38. Tossed up centre half forward for the Dogs. English wins it down. Houston was there. Whistle for a push coming back. It'll go to Tom Liberatore. Premiership Dog just inside the centre square. Quickly spots a target. English had floated forward and he hits him. Straight in front, 30 out.
We're just looking at that bit of play and that free kick from the stoppage. Port Adelaide probably guilty of their mids knocked back or getting back inside their D50 and filling in those leading lanes, which allowed English to get separation on his direct opponent in Sweet and take an uncontested mark. And going back to Liberatore, that was his 11th disposal. He's starting to get involved in the game, albeit at a lower level, needs to have more impact, but starting to get involved.
English hops in, now a trot, and strikes it straight over the goal umpire's hat. Back-to-back majors for the Dogs. Margin back down to 32. 8-5-53 Port Adelaide plays the Western Bulldogs 3-3-21. Time on in the second term. Saturday footy on ABC Sport. And Montgomery's texted in saying, team, this is quite disappointing from the Doggies. They just don't have the answers, as you guys have been saying. Port is running laps around them at the moment, and they put the Dogs on a leash at this point. Port could win by 100. Well, there's a bit of hope now after back-to-back majors there, Montgomery.
Absolutely, and Aaron, again, looking at the KPIs, the only area this quarter where the Western Bulldogs are struggling is the uncontested possession, and a lot of that is through uncontested mark chains that Port Adelaide are implementing or adopting through their ball movement. If they can restrict that, all the other stuff actually looks okay in terms of statistics and numbers.
Well, consecutive goals for the Dogs, and just a faint sense of hope for them. Liberatore almost out of the ruck contest. Now he's got it onto the left foot, and there'll be a free kick down the ground. There's a bit of afters went on with Liberatore and Horne-Francis.
Oh, yeah.
And there's still some going on the ground. Horne-Francis being assaulted. Meanwhile, the play goes on. Inside forward 50 for the Dogs. Port Adelaide come away. Mead slipped it to Farrell. Looks up, and was there a whistle? There is a whistle. Back behind play. Wait on the umpire.
Oh, I think it was against Georgiades.
Yeah. Right, there was a high shot then.
Yep.
And it'll come back. Port Adelaide was breaking out of defence. Now it'll come back. Gallagher's got the free kick at centre half forward for the Dogs.
Yeah, it was definitely against Georgiades. The non-officiating umpire, 200 metres from the ball, paid the free kick.
Gallagher into the 50, cut off by Boak. And Caulfield is nursing his jaw a bit, so we'll have to look at the vision when it pops back up. But it could be a problem for Mitch Georgiades if he has copped him that high.
I'm going to say there's going to be a few fines in that one, I reckon. There's about 4 or 5, both Bulldogs and Port Adelaide players having a brawl right in front of Ken Hinkley on the boundary.
Port by 32, and Miles Bergman's just kicked it straight to Sanders on the paint of 50. He uses English. Now Gallagher 35 out. Tried to go for home and spin out of the Burne-Jones tackle, but he's caught holding the ball. Gee, that's a lucky escape there for the Power. Poor delivery from Bergman.
The other thing as well, Aaron, is if Western Bulldogs can create enough indecision in Port Adelaide's execution by foot, as we saw from Bergman, even nearly on that occasion there, then they'll give you a chance, just like this.
It's all unfolding.
Yep.
So Burne-Jones went to Butters. It wasn't 15. He was lucky it was paid. He's played on, and then his kick to Bergman under pressure was missed, and it's been knocked over the boundary line. They're forcing this pressure on themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Josh Money downstairs.
Yeah, Mitch Georgiades will definitely be in a bit of strife with Michael Christian this week. You think it was right in front of me. He struck Nick Cockfield on the chin.
So the ball comes in from the throw-in. Treloar not quite first to there, or at least under pressure from Butters, and that pressure forced it off the lower leg and out of bounds on the full. So free kick for Butters, left half back, eastern side of the ground for Port Adelaide. Looks inboard, nothing available, plays on, and then goes long beyond the logo on centre wing. Surely that's a kick to English, yes. Both arms of Sweet were wrapped right around him, and the umpire saw it. So the Dogs, well, inboard, telegraphed the kick, and he turns it over straight away to Georgiades. Intercept mark for Port Adelaide? No, it wasn't even far enough. So the umpire said, let's throw the ball up.
Sweet wins it down. Richards is there, though, for the Dogs. Currently down by 32. They'll switch across half-back. Saturday footy on ABC Sport.
I reckon the game's definitely flipped here, Aaron. Western Bulldogs now in control of momentum, and they're stopping Port Adelaide's style of play.
Mark taken by Williams. That's the thoughts of All-Australian mid Josh Franco, your expert, alongside three-time premiership crow Eddie Marinoff. And the Glenelg product in Bailey Williams has kicked it straight to Zerk Thatcher. Port Adelaide now have it across half-back. Evans has been excellent this afternoon, and I've mozzed him because he's kicked it straight to Richards in the centre circle. Darts it hard, a tumbler. Gathered cleanly by Treloar, so slick. Bounces past a couple, gives it to Liberatore. Back to Treloar, crutched! What a hungry tackle that was from Jackson Mead. Treloar had the big sticks and was caught. Free kick to the power, up by 32.
Well, that's just a goal-saving tackle from Mead.
So chip short to Rosie, and then wide for Wines, and then running outside him was Burgoyne, who took it, one bounce, and then a long hand pass over the top to Finlayson. Finlayson goes down the line with his hand pass to Marshall. Inboard with a kick, and it should be a mark, and it is. Horne-Francis was sitting in some good space, and Marshall was able to find him 45 out, virtually straight in front.
Once again, another terrific kick inside forward 50, and when you hear coaches and players talking about changing angles and changing lanes, that was a classic example of it. The defender, I'm not sure who it was on Horne-Francis, was the sort of outside shoulder, boundary side, and he was just able to hook it back and find Horne-Francis almost uncontested.
So he's been literally 50-50 this season. 12-12 on the scoreboard. Comes in, drops it on the boot perfectly. No mistake about this one. Port Adelaide, another one close to half-time. And after a surge back from the Dogs, the power answers. 9-5-59 plays the Bulldogs 3-3-21. 28 minutes down in the second term on ABC Sport.
Just love the subtle move of Jason Horne-Francis' finger just to tell Todd to put it out in space. Naturally, when you're calling for the ball, you can catch your defender to come inside, but it's a forward craft from Todd Marshall to hit Jason Horne-Francis there. Know exactly where he wanted that football.
And that's what he has, isn't it, Todd Marshall, in his bag of tricks. He's normally very composed with ball in hand and generally makes good decisions. And if he's got the ball in hand inside forward 50, generally something happens. Terrific kick.
All clicking for the power this afternoon, up by 38 over at the Docklands. North Melbourne lead the Gold Coast Suns by 13 points, closing in at halftime there. 6-6-6 warning here. It's against the Bulldogs. Big tossed into the air. Lobb wins it down against Sweet. Bounce past Mead. Keeps fighting for it with Liberatore and towed out of there by Wines. Up into the air. Burne-Jones taps it down to Horne-Francis. Still in the centre square here. Gives it to Boak. And now Mead can turn. Hard low on a platter to Georgiades. Dishes it delightfully. The big man takes it 40 out. Slight angle to the right.
I reckon an area, once again, where the Western Bulldogs have struggled against Port Adelaide, particularly in centre bounce, is just the speed differential with Rosie, Butters, Horne-Francis, who's got some real speed in his legs, up against Bontempelli, Liberatore. Those sorts of guys don't have that speed. So Port Adelaide's ability to get on that loose ground ball, but then the execution, once again, inside forward 50 was outstanding from the power.
Mitch Georgiadis starts in the centre square. Very long approach. Gets some momentum and kicks from 45. He's got 4. On the halftime siren as well. That'll bring them to their feet at the Adelaide Oval. It's an equal career high for Mitch Georgiadis. The 4th time he's been able to do so. And you just have a feeling that the record books are going to be broken this afternoon. Connor Rosie's racking up touches left, right and centre. His best is 36 and he's already got 24. Zach Butters has 20 as well. And Port Adelaide are firing on all cylinders. They're up by 44 at the major break. 10-5-65 to the Western Bulldogs. 3-3-21 to kickstart your Saturday footy on ABC Sport. Plenty of text flocking in, so I'll get them all sorted in a moment's time on 0437 774 774. But still a couple of punters who think the Dogs are in this contest. They had a much better second term, Josh Franco, but it would hurt to concede the last 2.
Well, it's been an absolute dominant performance from Port Adelaide. We mentioned it at quarter time with all the statistics in favour of the Power in terms of disposals, the clearance count, the contested possessions, all those statistics which culminated in a pretty big deficit at quarter time. If you look at the numbers in that second quarter, Western Bulldogs actually were able to get their game going to some degree in terms of, the contested footy where they were +6, the ground ball gets, they were +3, the clearance count, they were +5. But as we said through numerous times throughout that first half, is that Port's ability when the ball's in hand and they're able to get their kick mark chains going, that the Western Bulldogs weren't able to defend it. And as you said, there was a little glimmer of hope, I thought, from the Bulldogs for probably about a 15-minute period in that second, 20-minute period in that second, but it was almost the dagger through the heart in the last 5 minutes of that second quarter when Port Adelaide were able to kick 2 majors. But again, prior to that, they were actually looking like they were starting to work their way back into this contest, the Western Bulldogs, but they go into the halftime break 44 points down. I know it's not insurmountable, but it's a pretty tough road back from here.
How's the contrast as well? You would have heard it in the back of the call there. Almost a guard of honour as the players went down the race. The applause lasted for a good 3 minutes after the halftime siren. 2 weeks ago, they were booing the senior coach off the ground, and Port Adelaide back to its best and much more united this afternoon.
Welcome to AFL footy. 1 week you're on top of the world, the next you're not. One thing that's caught out my eye is the fact that Port Adelaide have 9 players over 10 disposals and Bulldogs with just the 2. I mean, Bontempelli's, I've seen William Drew go with him a little bit around stoppages, but that by all means that's not a tag, and he's had 8 touches. So I think you need to inject Bontempelli into the game in the midfield. When he touches the ball, things happen. He played a little bit more forward that quarter, but it's been a super display from Port Adelaide. You can see how they're using the ball. Sometimes they've almost kept speed on the ball and caught their forwards off guard, but if you're Port fans, you're super impressed with this. Connor Rosie back to his best. He's had a couple of weeks now coming back from that ankle, and Zach Butters has dealt with the tag over the past 3-4 weeks. Bulldogs have gone head-to-head. He's found his mojo. But yeah, it's been super impressive, and if you're a Port fan, you're super excited. The way they're moving the footy, it's daring, and their pressure's also been good. When times Bulldogs have looked like they're going to get out, there's been a Port Adelaide player pressuring or corralling.
And I think the other thing as well, and you talk about it has been daring, but I reckon it's been relatively low risk. And part of that is part of the reason for that is that the Western Bulldogs have defended so poorly. So there's been so many options when Port Adelaide have switched the ball deep in their defence. They've spread the ground, and then they just go uncontested mark in the sort of front 2/3 of their ground, and then they look to put speed on the ball and go inside forward 50. I guess with composure, but also with speed. So I think the big message from the Western Bulldogs and the coaching staff to their players would be, one, we've got to tighten up defensively, and it's almost like going back to old-fashioned 1v1 when they do look to spread the ground and get their kick mark chain going. We've got to shut it down because they will give you opportunities, and we saw in that second quarter, about the 20-minute mark of that second quarter, Port Adelaide were making a couple of mistakes. The wheels looked a little bit wobbly when they were under pressure. The scoreboard was starting to tick over for the Western Bulldogs, and they give you opportunities. But if you can't pressure them and you can't shut down their uncontested mark chain, then you're going to keep getting this result. So I dare say that would be a pretty big focus for Luke Beveridge and his coaching staff at half-time.
That's four-time showdown medalist Josh Franco. We've got the AFLW Games record holder Ebony Marinoff in the box as well. Port Adelaide leading by 44 points. Saturday footy on ABC Sport. On the text line, Tyler in South Perth says, "G'day team, loving the call. Anyone that does the ladder predictor and gets it right is a liar or needs to provide next week's lottery numbers. My last 3 weeks I've gone 6-6, 4-9, and I'm staring down the barrel of 0-3 to start this round," says Tyler. That's because the other game at the Docklands is pretty neck and neck, and North Melbourne do lead it at the major break over Gold Coast, 8-3-51 to 7-3-45. And Tyler, I jumped on Squiggle, the AFL ladder predictor online today, and ran through the auto tips a couple of times, and tells you how close this season is. The first one had Port down in 15th, the second one had them in 4th, then they were down in 7th. So even the stats and the predictions, the algorithms can't seem to figure it out. We've got 13 teams in the hunt, and we've still got 8 rounds to go. So could play out any given way, and my tipping this year has been pretty abysmal, so I can't really help you there, Tyler, either. Another listener's still pretty pessimistic about Port Adelaide's chances, thinks the Dogs will beat Port Adelaide because the umpires will start giving them everything. I'm a Dogs fans, but the umps will play them more free kicks and Port Adelaide will crumble after half-time. So we'll see. The Dogs showed some good signs in that second term, but still lost the quarter. We're down by 30 at quarter time and now 44 at the major break. The goal scorers, 4 to Georgiades, singles to Butters, Wines, Francis, Sweet, Lord and Burn-Jones. Meanwhile for the Bulldogs, all individual, Bontempelli, West and Tim English. We'll give you some more of the stats at the other game and let you know what's to come across this afternoon in a moment's time. But on ABC Radio, Sport Digital and the ABC Listen app, it's time to take the latest from the ABC Newsroom.
ABC News with Satyam Weinstein. Reformist candidate Masoud Pezeshkian has won Iran's runoff presidential election. A count from authorities has given him victory by almost 3 million votes over hardliner Khalid Jalili. Mr. Pezeshkian's policies include the easing of enforcement of the country's mandatory headscarf law after years of protests. US President Joe Biden says he had a bad night during his televised debate with Donald Trump. Mr. Biden has sat down for a major interview with America's ABC News in the wake of the disappointing performance. It comes as he faces increasing calls for him to drop out of the presidential race. In the exclusive interview with ABC News anchor George Stephanopoulos, Mr. Biden says he was sick.
I was feeling terrible. Matter of fact, the docs with me, I asked them if they did a COVID test because we were trying to figure out what was wrong. They did a test to see whether or not I had some infection, a virus. I didn't. They just had a really bad cold.
An Israeli delegation has left Qatar and is heading back to Israel for consultation after a meeting with Qatari mediators for Gaza ceasefire talks. It comes after a revised peace proposal from Hamas, as the BBC's Sebastian Usher explains.
The head of Israel's spy agency, Mossad, led the delegation to Qatar, which has been one of the main mediators in trying to secure a ceasefire in Gaza. Before it left, Israeli officials said that expectations should be held in check. The delegation was back in Israel later in the day. On its return, the Israeli Prime Minister's office said a negotiating team would head off to continue talks next week. For now, at least, the process towards a deal is once again underway. Hopes had been raised at this time it might achieve greater success after various sources said a new Hamas proposal was a significant breakthrough.
Indonesian police say they believe a New South Wales woman who was found in Bali with horrific head injuries crashed into a scooter into a parked motorcycle. Southeast Asia correspondent Lauren Day reports.
A doctor treating Rebecca Ode says she's now able to speak but can't remember the accident that led to her significant head injuries. The 36-year-old has lost an eye, fractured 2 cheekbones and her collarbone, and has hemorrhaging on the brain. A police report obtained by the ABC shows a witness describing Ms. Ode driving a Yamaha scooter into a parked motorcycle. Her family has rushed to be by her side and is now focused on raising money for her medical care and to evacuate her back to Australia for further treatment.
Federal Opposition Leader Peter Dutton has addressed party members at the annual LNP convention in Brisbane today. He began his keynote speech by endorsing state leader David Crisafulli to be the next Queensland Premier. The LNP will be aiming to win government in the Sunshine State for the first time in more than a decade when voters go to the polls in October. Mr Dutton has taken aim at the Labor state government's cost of living policies.
Premier Miles is hoping to buy Queenslanders' votes with a one-off $1,000 electricity rebate for households and a going-out-of-business sale with 50-cent public transport fares for 6 months. It doesn't get any more cynical than that. And he thinks Queenslanders are stupid, and they're not.
Police say the driver in a crash that killed a teenage passenger in the New South Wales Hunter Valley region overnight was an L-plater. Police say 5 teenagers were in a car that crashed into a tree at Saltash, north of Newcastle. A 16-year-old boy died on the way to hospital, and the 17-year-old driver tested positive in a roadside breath test. Inspector Faith Samsa says police are continuing their investigations.
3 other occupants in the car, aged from 14 to 17 years of age, were conveyed to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. There were 4 males and 1 female in the vehicle at the time.
3 rain bands sweeping across the country from east to west coast are likely to bring rain to every state over the coming week. Ali Crew with the details.
3 separate cloud bands sweeping across Australia during the coming week are likely to drop at least a few millimetres of rain on every patch of ground south of Brisbane in Queensland to Geraldton in WA. The rain will end the recent southeast cold snap and should bring solid falls in excess of 25 millimetres to key farming areas through the Murray-Darling Basin, South Australia and Western WA. The development of the first rain band over the interior coincides with an update of Bureau of Meteorology's seasonal forecasts, which now tip a wetter than normal winter and spring across most of Australia.
You're up to date with the very latest from ABC News.
Wimbledon 2024 on ABC Sport. Hear it live every night on the ABC Listen app. Just search for the tennis button.
Embark on adventures through ABC iView.
Now is the time.
Like with Miriam Margolyes. I'm on a quest.
Welcome to Broken Hill, Miriam.
Mingaloo.
It's one of the last intact places on the planet.
Tony Armstrong's Extraordinary Things.
Holy Hector. We should have picked a smaller country.
Stuff the British stole.
It's been a treasury, it's been a temple. Is it also a crime scene?
And so many more. Always free, always adventurous on ABC iView.
This is ABC Sports coverage of the 2024 AFL season. Every match on the ABC Listen app.
Look for the AFL button.
McRae there got a handball out to Richards under pressure. Found Bontempelli, the champion with the check side. From 30 out. Bonts on the board, and the Dogs have their first of the afternoon. Comes 2nd minute mark of the second term. Now closing is McNeil, gets a kick and finds Mead. Then Burne-Jones lowers the eyes and hits Sweet on the chest. Just the 2 goals in his career. Jordan Sweet, the big man, straight approach, beautiful strike. He's got his first in teal. Deep kick into the 50 for the Dogs. Alir there though, gathered on the volley, caught in the tackle, dropped it, and the umpire says holding the ball. West comes in, straight as an arrow.
Huge blow for the Bulldogs. Aaron Norton is done for the day with this head injury, so their chances of reeling this margin back are taking a big hit with no Aaron Norton.
Just inside the centre square, quickly spots a target. English had floated forward and he hits him. English hops in and strikes it straight over the goal umpire's hat. Back-to-back majors for the Dogs. Gives it to Boak, and now Mead can turn hard low on a platter to Georgiadis. Very long approach. Gets some momentum and kicks from 45. He's got 4 on the halftime siren as well. That'll bring them to their feet at the Adelaide Oval.
The 2024 AFL Premiership season.
On your radio.
ABC Sport Digital.
And on the ABC Listen app.
Port Adelaide looks back to its best at the Adelaide Oval in the bright sunshine of South Australia. They're up by 44 points over the Western Bulldogs. It was supposed to be this enthralling clash between 2 finals contenders. Very one-sided so far. Let's see what the Western Bulldogs can dish up in this second half. Port Adelaide 10-5-65 to the Dogs 3-3-21. Aaron Bryans and Neil Cross calling the action for you. 3-time Premiership Crow Ebony Marinoff and All-Australian midfielder Josh Franco, your experts. There's been a lot happening in this contest. If you're just joining us, So Aaron Norton is out of the game with concussion, and very likely that we'll see Mitch Georgiadis placed on report for high contact against Nick Caulfield. May have gone for a jumper punch and just clipped him a little high, so that'll be certainly looked at by the MRO. A fair bit happening at the other game as well over at the Docklands, which you can hear on the ABC Listen app through the AFL button. The lead is just seesawing between North Melbourne and Gold Coast, and the Roos are up at the major break. 8-3-51 to the Suns, 7-3-45. Nick Larkey has 2, as does Sam Day. Plenty of individual goal scorers. Sherry, Teakle, Shields, Pink, Lukosius, King, Graham, Dawson, Davies, Uniacke, Anderson and Ainsworth. Best on ground so far in that contest. Tristan Sherry, arguably 21 hitouts, 10 touches and a goal, but LDU's got 17 touches and Sheasel as well with 17. Meanwhile here, we're headed to the record books. So Georgiadis with 4, it's an equal career high for him. Connor Rosie has 24. He had the most touches in a quarter this year in the opening term with 18. So his best is 36. Keep an eye out on that. Butters has 20 as well. Best for the Dogs. Treloar with 17 and Liberatore with 13. The text line, if you want to get in touch, 0437 774 774. A couple of listeners. So Vic from Adelaide says, very nice to hear that Port have found their spark again. It's been a frustrating couple of weeks, but it sounds like they're finally back on track. Cheers for the drive home from work entertainment. You're very welcome, Vic. And Albie's got in touch and says, hi team, if the scoring patterns up to half-time maintain their trajectory, it will equate to some splendid numerology. The theoretical outcome of the margin is 88. Georgiadis' goal count will be 8, and Connor Rosie's touches will be 48. How about that? We'll see if they can back it up for 4 quarters of footy, Albie, but we'll keep an eye out on all the stats and records that could drop this afternoon. Saturday footy on ABC Sport. There's some big news around the code of the league as well. Collingwood have confirmed after last night's loss to Essendon that Brody Myercheck has torn his pec. But in their wording of the statement, they say he will miss the remainder of the home and away season. They haven't entirely said the full season. So maybe there's a chance for finals football for Brody Myercheck, but it's certainly a big blow for a side that's battling for a spot in the 8, as is 12 other clubs right now. So the live ladder has Port in the top 4. There's still a couple of games to come. Fremantle and Richmond tonight would knock them back out if the Dockers get the job done. Giants up against Carlton as well. The next game, Geelong and Hawthorn at Cardinia from 4:30 Eastern Standard Time. So there's still plenty to play out in terms of those contenders. But right now, Port's in the 4. The Dogs are out of the 8. So Luke Beveridge's men will need to do something special to turn this around. Josh Franco, Ebony Marinoff, it's been a pretty exciting afternoon for the home crowd and a very disappointing one for the Western Bulldogs. But it feels like the midfield unit that we praised so highly, Josh, at the start of the year. Yeah. There were times where we were saying that trifecta was the best in the league, and the Swans have started to overtake that, I think, with their consistency. But the last couple of weeks, they just look exactly like the Port Adelaide of old. Yeah, well, it's interesting. Even Ebony's comment pre-game around that they do run forward. And I reckon that's probably one criticism that I have of the Port Adelaide midfield, and I guess they do like to run forward defensively. Sort of question, are they prepared to work as hard defensively as they are offensively? But at the moment, I guess they haven't really been tested defensively, have they? And one of the real strength of the Port Adelaide midfield is their speed on that loose scramble. We see it time and time again. They don't have the real big bodies like the Petrakas and Olivers of the Melbournes and Bontempelli and those sorts of players, Patrick Cripps from Carlton. But what they do have is if they can bring the ball into a scramble, they have electrifying speed to be able to jump on that loose scramble and then get their handball chain or their game going off the back of that. But you're right, early in the season, and I guess I was guilty of that, saying I reckon they've got the best, most dynamic midfield in the competition. They have dipped a little bit, which you would expect throughout the course of a season with any midfield, but they seem to be back to their best at the moment. And if we're going by statistics, then that probably supports that, with Rosie on 24 touches, Butters on 20, Ollie Wines has had 20, and even you talk about Horn Francis, who he's not a big possession winner. He has huge impact on the game with the touches he gets, but he's only had the 7 disposals. So he's a player that hasn't had the impact he has previously, or particularly last week. He was outstanding against St Kilda, but the rest of them are carrying the workload. Well, you've got Jackson Mead in the mix as well, and his foot skills have been really on show today. But one thing you speak about, I guess, the Port Adelaide mids running offensively and defensively. Today you've seen Butters lay a few tackles in the defensive half, and I spoke about energy intent before the game, and you can sense that they're leading the way. They've got the leaders in Connor and Zach
leading the way in just pressure acts and playing daring, exciting footy, and at times it's been brave. But one thing, with Aaron Norton going out, Rory Lobb's now gone forward, and in a really crucial match next week, Carlton, Aaron Norton will be sorely missed.
Absolutely, and I think there's probably two players I look at right at the moment the Western Bulldogs need to get going for them to be any chance of closing this 44-point margin, and that's Bontempelli. We talked about the best player globally, Crossy. He's the best player in Australia at the moment. He needs to start having an impact on the game and really stamping his footprint on this game. And the other one I think is Ugle-Hagan. Hasn't had a huge day out so far, just the 4 disposals. He's kicked 1 point, so he's another player up forward. I think that if they can get enough supply and their midfields can get enough of the footy, then they give an opportunity, gives the Western Bulldogs a chance to get back in this contest.
Port by 44, Saturday footy on ABC Sport.
Even the hardest of markers would say Port has done very well, but can they win the second half? Out of the middle, it's a great start. Horne-Francis, 2 bounces. He almost wobbled now. Has he run too far? Yes, he's absolutely smashed in a tackle. Big English got him. The ruckman got him. But not until he'd run about 35 metres.
Didn't know where to go. That was bizarre, wasn't it?
So English from the back half, or the half-back line, goes down the line. Port Adelaide will come away through. Rosie, who's a magician, but just couldn't get the ball, which was behind him. He's trying to shift it from one hand to the other behind his back. Umpire calls for a ball up.
English comes in late, rises above Sweet with the tap towards Sanders. He's wrapped up by Farrell, ball up. On the text line, Bill's not happy. He says, do you think the Dogs did any prep for this game? Sweet wins it down, looking for Rosie Liberatore there, but ripped away by Butters, who hands it to Farrell, and Port head to the outer side. Burne-Jones is the target, and it lands in his lap on the logo. Had Burgoyne running on the outside, can't use him with Duray on his tail, so goes for Boak, crunched by Dale. Burgoyne there to mop it up, and he's wrapped up. Got a kick away as it rolls towards Narkle, who left it in the end for Boak, who kept running, but he went past the footy. Had the big sticks, but didn't have the pill. Picked up by Treloar, and he exits to Sanders at right half back.
Down the line he goes for McRae, who's worked hard, the left footer. He'll go with an outside hand pass for Dale. Dale from near the interchange goes straight down the line, and Bergman says, yep, perfect, I read that.
And Dale was screaming at Ugle-Hagan, had to come at the kicker there. Was running back towards goal, and Bergman easy intercept mark.
He came straight at the kicker. Now he kicks down to half forward and leading up Georgiades on the chest. And then inside half forward, perfect for Marshall. Marshall, 49 out, straight in front.
Just once again too easy for Port Adelaide to be able to move that footy. Tell you what, Luke Beveridge would be scratching his head in the coach's box.
What did we talk about, boys, at half time? That would be his first thought, I think.
Yep.
So Marshall crouched over the ball. He's inside the centre square. A man on the mark, maybe 45 from goal. And he's got a breeze behind him that says distance isn't a problem. Hooking the ball like that, unless you're playing cricket, is a problem. And he hooked it out on the full. So he's missed everything. Free kick, Western Bulldogs in the right back pocket.
Isn't it amazing what the pressure of goal kicking does to your technique?
Caulfield looks to exit to right half back. Ugle-Hagan couldn't reel it in. At the back was Butters. Wheels inside. Squares it up to Marshall. Looking to make amends. He heads to the centre circle. Here's Houston. The All-Australian halfback calling to settle things down. No one forward of centre for the Dogs at the moment. Port Adelaide head inside 50. Houston targeting Sweet. Spoilt away from him by English, and high contact going the way of Big Tim. Free kick to the All-Australian ruck. On the text line, David in Southbank, shocked Bulldog supporter. This is a horrible show. Are they jet-lagged from the 90-minute flight, perhaps? Port by 44. Dogs have the footy.
I got bad news for you. They're only getting worse.
Yep.
They turn the ball over there. Houston inside with a kick, finds Horne-Francis. Inside the centre square, drops it short. Rosie takes a ball that only went about 8 metres and then puts it up in the air, and his kick under pressure finds Sanders, who's tackled straight away because, of course, the kick only went about 6 metres. Ball up inside 50 for Port. Goes in the air. Liberatore after pack. Just clears it away, and Lobb takes a mark. He's still behind centre wing, out on the eastern side of the ground. Forced to slow up. He's got nobody to kick to, so he goes sideways. Bailey Dale. Dale finds Karmas on the run. Not quite, couldn't pull in the mark. Now he's got a steady up and hand pass inside. Wasn't great, but it'll come off. Brandle down to half forward looking for Liberatore. Punched away from him. Gallagher picks it up. Breaks one tackle, hand passes. Umpire signals, yes, he got a hand pass. And now he comes back and tackles his opponent over the line. Throws down Burn-Jones. Throw in, says the umpire. Right half forward for the Dogs. It is very industrious, but not very effective from the Dogs at the moment.
5 minutes into the third term. Saturday footy on ABC Sport. We haven't had a score so far. Port won't mind. They're up by 44. Tossed up. Sweet. Won it down straight towards Treloar, who hands it off.
Oh, goodness me.
Awful disposal and delivery there from Bramble, trying to find Giray. Cut off by Boat, couldn't control it. Now Bontempelli from 55 says, stuff it, I'm going for home. Crunching the pack, Darcy couldn't control it, and Aaliyah wraps him up, top of the goal square. Ball up to come inside 50 for the Dogs.
I said goodness me, only because, again, their handball chain out of stoppage, it just hasn't worked today, and they're continually making or taking the wrong option.
Port by 44, tapped down to Bontempelli, quick hack towards goals and up and under, and knocked over the boundary line to be tossed back in. It was off a boot, and they are going to pay deliberate. So a free kick to Dan Houston, right back pocket. Saturday footy on ABC Sport. Aaron Bryans and Neil Cross with you, your experts, All-Australian midfielder Josh Franco, three-time premiership Crow Ebony Marinoff.
Houston, 40-metre pass, and it was a pass, even though it was a contested mark. Bergman pulled it in. Now he goes out to the eastern wing looking for Narkle, finds it. Narkle immediately plays on, forward hand pass Burgoyne. Then flanking him was Butters, outside of the right foot, too cute. Dogs will come away through English. And then Logan Evans picks up the ball and forced to the ground in the tackle of Treloar. And that'll be a ball up, close to the centre circles.
You'd say Port Adelaide fans have found one in Logan Evans. I mean, it's his third game, but his attack on the footy is super impressive for a young lad who just got drafted in the mid-season draft.
English won it down, but only found Burgoyne. Chain of handballs got it to Narkle, and he's wrapped up again. Closer towards the 50 for the Power, up by 44. Sweet down, put it in the path of Mead, but Boat tried to rip it away from him. Neither could gather, and we'll try again as English lays a tackle. No score in this third term so far. Port by 44 though. Sweet takes it out of the ruck and tumbles it straight to Dale, who hands it to Gallagher. The Dogs breaking out of half back. O'Donnell down the line, tried to hit McRae, but he's bowled over. Evans stood his ground, and the youngster cuts it off in his third game. He looks good over these past few weeks, Logan Evans. Right at home, the mid-season recruit. Switches through Aaliyah, and now Bergman on the outer side in the sun. On the 45 wide to Burgoyne. He's in front of the Odie stand.
Just watched Logan Evans come off the ground. Then after that kick, he looked like he grabbed his adductor or his groin. We might have to get an update from Josh Money on the boundary.
You talk about Logan Evans. He actually spent the whole year at Port Adelaide in the pre-season, so he's had a little bit more time to actually train and, I guess, get AFL ready.
Burgoyne to Bergman. Heads it towards the pack in the scoreboard pocket. Cleared them. Finlayson there. Hooked it. Minus score on the right-hand side. Port by 45, 7 minutes into the third term. Saturday footy on ABC Sport. Josh Money downstairs.
Yeah, Ebony Marinoff has officially given Logan Evans the kiss of death. As he kicked that ball, Josh is right. He grabbed his adductor or groin region and looks in a world of pain. I'll keep you posted.
So the Dogs have brought it out to the shade on centre wing to Lob, and Lob lobs the ball and just gets away with it. Mark taken inboard by Richards, and he got clattered into. The umpire said it was a mark though. Richards gets up, shaky, forced to give the hand pass off. DeRay down to half forward, good kick found West, who then spilt the easiest of marks and put Gallagher under pressure with a hand pass, and now can't shake off a tackle, just got away with it. Back to DeRay, this time he says let's go inside forward, look for Lop. Came off hands and straight down to Rosie. Shared it with Houston, who bumbled it to Aaliyah, clears the area. This is ugly footy. The Dogs have slowed down Port, but only just.
It's about to look a lot better because Wines rips it out and hands it to Boat. He can release Rosie. Mozzed him. He's tried to get around Dale and given it straight to the dog. Ricochets out towards Lockie Jones. Spun around by Lobb. Got it out late. English fell into the back of his opponent. No free kick. We'll get a ball up near the centre circle as Wines gets off the deck.
I mean, if you're a Western Bulldog supporter watching this, you just don't know what they're trying to do and the plan that they're trying to execute at the moment. They look lost at sea, the Bulldogs.
Port by 45. Quick kick from Drew up to half forward, and Karmas was there. Cuts it off in front of Georgiadis for the Dogs. Now he uses Fraser, the sub, on for Norton. Out wide to Bramble. Riding shotgun was Gallagher, who arches the back and brushes off Bergman into the 50, a wobbler, and Aaliyah read it best. Cutting off Darcy, who's infuriated by the delivery. Intercept for Port Adelaide. They're up by 45. Saturday footy on ABC Sport.
It's been a common theme of the Bulldogs forwards today. Just looking at the kicker, saying, where is this going? Kick it to my advantage.
Well, Bergman's kicked to Marshall's advantage. Oh, and he clattered into Fraser, who goes to ground, and Marshall stands up, gives it to Lord. He marks it near 50, inside 50 into the forward pocket, and Georgiades leading up takes an easy mark. I think it was Fraser out there, and he's still down, and he may have facial injury out of that.
Well, he's trying to stop the run of, was it Marshall?
Marshall, yep.
I think his head just in collision with Marshall's sort of upper arm. Obviously accidental, but he caught heavy contact there in the head.
Josh Money will be on that as we wait for Georgiades wide out. He's already got 4, kicking for his 5th goal. Georgiades comes in and across the goal face, and it's marked. Of course it's marked. That's just the way the day's going. Sweet goes up and against his former side takes the mark. Acute angle. He'll be hard against the boundary line.
Once again, symptomatic of the way that the Western Bulldogs have gone about their business during the course of this game. They've been non-existent in terms of the contest. There was a glimmer in that second quarter, but they've been completely outplayed.
And he hooks it around, and the result is a minus score. So just the minus score, 46 points, the margin in favour of Port Adelaide, and Josh Money down on the boundary.
Yes, it's James O'Donnell who's come off, and certainly getting that nose patched up. A lot of claret coming out of that. You'd imagine now he'll also have a concussion test like the one that Aaron Norton failed in the first half.
Game high 46-point lead to the Power as West drives it up the broadcast wing. Little wide of the converging players. There's a whistle anyway. McNeil held. South Australian Dog has it forward of centre wing. Calling for options, and no one's presenting, and he's kicked it straight to Aaliyah, who was the only one on the charge. Slipped through his hands at the back. Trying to gather as Vandermeer. He's flung it out to Sanders. That's all he could do. Wrapped up in the tackle. One arm was free, and he's just looped it out to Butters, who receives the free kick.
I think that's a hard one with the new rule. Players have been told to get rid of the footy if they can, and at times I think they just try too hard, but if he kept that ball in, I don't think that would have been paid holding the footy because he had no prior nor another hand.
Butters to Farrell, who wants to go. Puts on the Jets, up the corridor towards Lord, put it down, keeps fighting, but he's buffeted away by Fraser. Hands it off towards Treloar. Charging by is Caulfield. A former Saint. Put it in the path of West, just couldn't reel it in back to the sun and knocks it over the boundary line.
Well, he knocked it over the boundary on the full, so off his leg. So,
wow.
Yeah, Dogs can't take a trick just at the moment. No. So, Zirk Thatcher goes down the line. We'll get back to Josh Money in a minute, who's got more news on the boundary as Lord takes a strong pack mark and then goes across the ground, almost turns the ball over. Gallagher comes late, knocks it down for the Dogs. Bailey Dale picked it up, was swamped in the tackle and forced the ball up, did Horn Francis. Josh Money.
So O'Donnell's gone down to the Bulldogs' rooms now to have that concussion test. Logan Evans has made a quick recovery from that groin and is back on for Port.
English down to Sanders for the Dogs. Hands it to Williams, then Treloar, and back to the youngster Sanders. Pick 6. Dancing and dodging past Mead. Chipped it up towards McNeil. Couldn't control it. Had to slide in up against Jones. Both wrestling for the footy. Will get a ball up. Port by 46. Fans are happy. Haven't had a goal in the third term, though. 13 minutes in. Meanwhile at the Docklands, scores level between North and the Suns as English wins it down towards the boundary line and barged over on Francis, smashes Sanders. So you can hear that game on the ABC Listen app through the AFL button. Still to come today, Geelong and Hawthorn at Cardinia, and then tonight we'll have your pick of the Giants and the Blues or the Dockers and the Tigers. Toss back in, English down on Francis, coat hanging. Sanders over the shoulder, umpire didn't see it, non-controlling comes in and pays it, thankfully. It was as clear as day. Hornet has it for the Power. Dinks it to Butters at the attacking edge of the square. Riding past, Farrell on the lethal left, didn't go for home this time, lowered it to the top of the goal square. Karmas knocks it to ground and lays the tackle.
And once again, you're just really poor defensively from the Western Bulldogs. The stoppage, Horn Francis free kick, Butters on his own, handball off to Farrell, should have been a goal.
Sweet with a tap down. And Wines tried to duck the tackle, lost control of the ball, out of bounds. Josh Money, he is busy.
It is all happening on the Bulldogs bench. Harvey Gallagher's come off. It looks like his left shoulder's popped out, so the doctors are trying to put that back in now. Ouch.
So in comes the ball from the throw-in. English brought it to the front for the Dogs. Horn Francis picked it up, tried to accelerate away, hand passed over the head. Burn Jones, the recipient, so the hyphens combined, and then they gave it to Burgoyne, who was taken down a tackle, ball up, and the Bulldogs force the ball up to near where the arc of 50 is.
English down, straight to Butters though, hands it to Horn Francis, trying to turn away from Treloar, who was on the hunt, and the Dog strikes. They want to keep going, taking the advantage. There's a brick wall ahead of them. Lob turned and was caught by Jones. They've made amends. Sanders to Treloar. Lob again. Uses Ugle-Hagan on the outer wing. Kicks too long for McNeil. Foot race on with Zerk Thatcher. The Power defender wins out and knocks it over the boundary line. Port by 46. Saturday footy on ABC Sport.
And I'll tell you what, once again, a really good example of Port Adelaide's contested part of their game. Their ability to deny the Western Bulldogs time and space. Tackling, their ability to close space was outstanding.
English edges Evans out of the drop, takes it, kicks into the 50. Aaliyah put it down. Turay couldn't hurdle over the falling bodies and falls down 25 out. Aaron Bryan's Neil Cross, 4-time showdown medalist Josh Franco, 3-time premiership Crow Ebony Maroff with you on ABC Sport as Sweet wins it down. McRae shoveled a handball out under duress. Bontempelli paddles it towards Treloar. Brushes off a couple and skies it to the goal square. McNeil, courageous, had 3 to beat but couldn't take it. Spills down towards Houston and he hacks it out of there. Bramble with the slips catch, couldn't quite get there. 45 from home for the Dogs, and Vandermeer spun. Put in the spin cycle down towards ground, and we'll get a ball up 45 out.
And now Marshall getting involved in the physicality. Outstanding tackle there once again.
That's just the intent that they've had all day, just intent to pressure and tackle.
Dogs will get it away from the clearance through Sanders with a kick into the pocket, and English, tallest man in the pack, came across, buffeted away Evans, dismissed Farrell and took the strong mark for the Dogs.
Haven't seen a lot of English today. He's had the 12 disposals, he's already kicked a goal, but hasn't had the influence that we know that he's capable of. And I must admit, Aaron, I don't watch the percentage on the ladder closely enough, but all these goals count now for the Western Bulldogs. They've got to close that margin if they can and keep that percentage loss that they're going to get out of this game to a minimum.
All Australian from last year, English from the acute angle. What a kick for a ruckman especially. Can we say that? I just did. Really good kick by English. So the Dogs get their first of the second half, just their 4th of the game, and it is English's second for the afternoon. So Western Bulldogs 4-3-27, still trailing by 40 points. Port Adelaide 10-7-67. We've gone through 18 minutes of the third quarter. It's not quite the open, free-flowing contest we had in the first half.
Well, I guess when we talk about percentage, when it's such a bottleneck in that middle part of the ladder, then percentage does play a part. So it is important that the Western Bulldogs are able to hang in here and not let this margin blow it anymore. So when you get opportunities like English did on that occasion, you've got to finish.
They're one of the better teams in the comp right now, percentage 115, so that's put them above the Giants and the Suns, Melbourne and Hawthorn, all on 32 points right now on the live ladder. So they're outside the 8, but if they get in there, it certainly helps them jump a fair few. English wins it down in the path of Bontempelli, had Rosie stalking him, and the pressure forces the turnover. Lockie Jones Hands it off to Finlayson, riding shotgun. Into the 50 he goes for Lord, too high. Spilled to the back though. Horne-Francis pounces. He was lurking dangerously, and now he's got two. And just like that, Port back up by 46. 11-7-73 to the Dogs, 4-3-27. Time on in the third term. Saturday footy on ABC Sport. On the text line, Ron from Adelaide still isn't sold. Said enjoying the call, but I won't be convinced about Port until they play some top 8 teams. And it's a tricky one, Ron, because as we said, there's 13 teams in the hunt. They've beaten the Bombers and the Dockers and the Cats, who are currently in the 8. You could argue the Dogs being part of that mix can count, but I think he's more referring to your Sydneys and your Carltons.
And that's a fair shout, absolutely,
Which are on the run home for them in their last 8.
And if they're good enough, they'll beat them when their time and their opportunity comes.
Back in the middle, against the bottom 10 sides, Port Adelaide 6 wins, 3 losses. And the ball wasn't bounced quite right, so the umpire will call it back and say, let's throw it up instead. It'll be English to go against Finlayson, so you'd think English is going to win this tap. And he does. Puts it down for Richards, the left footer, breaking the redhead out of the middle. Drives it long, and Ugle-Hagan, well, he got up high, couldn't take it on his chest. Liberatore gave the hand pass out to West. He gave it back to Sanders, then wide for McRae, just chipped it over the top. It was punched away from Vandermeer by Bergman. Vandermeer recovered, gave it to Treloar, fell over, hand pass quickly back to Duray. Inside 50 again, high, and lob went up and the ball got smashed away from him to Bergman, who'll clear the area again for Port Adelaide, this time finding the chest of Georgiades.
Port by 46, Georgiades turns and uses Burn-Jones. No one pressuring him, so he plays on, taking a bounce through the outer side to his skipper Rosie. Wheels it up towards the top of the goal square. Dale gets back with a fist and rolls it towards the boundary line in front of the scoreboard.
I know we've mentioned Lobb has moved forward, but I'm not sure if we've mentioned that Darcy's gone back. I'm not sure how much time Darcy for the Western Bulldogs has spent as a defender, but he's under the pump at the moment.
Thoughts of 4-time Showdown medalist Josh Franco. Games record holder Ebony Marinoff in the box. Tossed in. Finlayson got some space on English on the drop, but missed his boot. Whistle coming back. Free kick to the power. Horne-Francis may have been held by Richards off the ball, so Finlayson's shank won't matter. The Hornets going to get a chance in front of the scoreboard for his third.
And as we've discussed at half-time, Horne-Francis 11 disposals, not noted as a high possession winner, but when he does touch the footy, generally things happen. And as you said, Aaron, lining up for his third shot on goal, or his third goal.
Man on the mark, 20 out, 45-degree angle to the right. Horne-Francis charges in, drives it through the goal. 3 for Horne-Francis. Port Adelaide up by a game-high 52. 12-7-79 to the Dogs, 4-3-27 as we close in on three-quarter time. Saturday footy on ABC Sport. Josh Money downstairs.
Well, Aaron, as Josh Franco rightly points out, Sam Darcy's moved into defence. That's to cover the loss of O'Donnell, who's still down in the Bulldogs' rooms. It looks increasingly unlikely that he'll come back as he's assessed for concussion. So much talk about the Bulldogs' three-headed monster coming into this game. There's no Norton now and no Darcy up forward for the Bulldogs.
Well, it's interesting as well, and I guess we'll talk about it briefly post-game, is that Hinkley can cop the heat that he's copped a couple of weeks ago. I'll tell you what, the blowtorch should be turned up on the Western Bulldogs because they have been disgraceful today.
Luke Bettridge, 10 seasons in charge at the Kennel. Well, at least he has a premiership though.
Yeah, I mean, there's been zero resistance. They look, and I understand you can have games like this, but they've looked lost at sea. They look a rebel at the moment.
So Lob's gone into the centre square now to be the ruck. That's interesting. So he's started at the back, gone forward, now he's in the ruck.
I think they're just trying to generate something.
Finlayson down to Mead, and he's claimed by Bontempelli, who had 35 possessions under an injury cloud last week. He's supposed to be fit this week and hasn't touched the ball. Running away from him this time was Rosie. Inside 50 with a kick into the pocket. Georgiades and Karmas go at it. Ball spills out to Darcy. slips a hand pass out. Vandermeer takes it onto the boot quickly. Could be a turnover. Rosie looks like another possession. No, Lobb came in and got it away. Quickly to Sanders, and they'll break from half-back with a kick down the line that finds the chest of West.
But again, going back to that stoppage at centre forward for the Power, Rosie just uncontested from it. No body contact at all. He's able to weave his way through and penetrate inside 50.
He's got 30 for the afternoon, the Power skipper. The Dogs through the broadcast wing. West intended for Ugelhagen, knocked down to Liberatore. He even kicked to the forward 50 pocket, trying to find Vandermeer. He's undersized against Jones and Alier and easily beaten. The exit was a bit treacherous though. Sanders cuts it off to Treloar, back inside 50 for the Western Bulldogs. Mead knocked it down. Ugelhagen tried to have a snap, and he's hoiked it to the left forward pocket. Set up for ages, an eternity, and finally Jones there on the drop. Hands it to Marshall, then Boak. The Power fans up and about this afternoon. They've loved what they've seen, and once again they've navigated their way out of danger. Farrell to Drew, and up the broadcast wing to Burne-Jones. He's forward of centre wing. Over the top, the run on from Butters. Too far out to score as he marks. Spots Horne-Francis in the 50 though. The Shepherd's on, and it lands in his lap. It's all too easy. Straight in front, Jason Horne-Francis, 30 out, and listen to the elation.
And once again, just far too easily, Port Adelaide able to move the ball. And again, it was basically an uncontested mark inside their forward 50, and just defensively from the Western Bulldogs, not up to AFL standard, and they've really been exposed in that area of their game.
Jason Horne-Francis starts at centre half forward. The crowd in anticipation as Horne-Francis misses to the left-hand side. Still chasing a career-high fourth goal. Port by 53 points. Time on in the third term. Saturday footy on ABC Sport. At the Docklands, the Roos lead the Suns by 7. You can hear it on the ABC Listen app through the AFL button.
So Darcy brings it in. Plays on, goes long to English. There's the tall players working for the Dogs this time. English in the shade of the grandstand on this broadcast side of the ground. It's all stop-start now for the Dogs. English down towards the logo on centre wing. Off hands. McRae with a hand pass to Sanders. Sanders goes back to West. West looks and turns around, does a nice little turn to get rid of Drew, and then goes long inside forward 50. Ball over the back. McNeil should have taken it. He missed it. On the ground, hand pass slipped towards Bontempelli. Snapped around the corner and missed. Port fans love that too. It must be said it's a smaller crowd for Port this afternoon, and I reckon they're all true believers, the ones that have turned up this afternoon, and they are giving it to the Dogs as much as they're supporting their own players.
That just sums up Bontempelli's day. He's only had 11 touches, kicked 1 goal, 1. But it's his contested possession. He's only had 6. But going back onto Port's score, and they've scored 6 goals from the defensive half. So they're rebounding off 50.
Here they go, straight up the middle. Farrell to Marshall, then Butters. Got it off towards Mead, and then Butters again. They keep pinballing up the spine. Marshall hits the deck, couldn't control it. Farrell gathers, trying to bulldoze past Liberatore's court. Paddled by Marshall and cut off by Sanders. It was very courageous from the Power to try and go end-to-end in a matter of seconds, but the Dogs were there and waiting. Here they come on the rebound. Jure, low, tumble it towards Bontempelli, and he's easily edged away from the footy by Houston. And that'll do us for 3/4 of footy. Oh, they're having a great afternoon, the Power faithful. Those back out west over east would be infuriated by this performance. The Dogs' finals credentials being challenged. Port Adelaide making a statement. 12-8-80 to the Western Bulldogs, 4-4-28. Goal scorers heading into the final term. Georgiadis has 4, Horne-Francis 3. Singles to Butters, Wines, Sweet, Lord and Burne-Jones. For the Dogs, 2 to English, and individual goals to West and Bontempelli. Just a goal apiece in that third term, but Port Adelaide's margin jumps up from 44 to 52 in the grand scheme of things. Great to have you with us across this afternoon. Kept you updated with what's happening at the Docklands as well on ABC Radio, Sport Digital and the ABC Listen app. This is Saturday Footy on ABC Sport.
G'day, Patrick Stack here from ABC Sport Daily. If you love sport...
Well, so much of it is just frustration and expectation and the drought for a major trophy that dates back to 1966.
And great conversation.
I think as soon as I got to sort of a social age, I really kind of took that as my identity. It was the baseball kid.
Then you'll love ABC Sport Daily.
He had this incredible talent and the world at his feet.
ABC Sport Daily. Get it on the ABC Listen app.
This is ABC Sports coverage of the 2024 AFL season. Every match on the ABC Listen app.
Look for the AFL button.
Dogs will get it away from the clearance through Sanders with a kick into the pocket, and English, tallest man in the pack, came across and took a strong mark for the Dogs. All-Australian from last year, English from the acute angle. What a kick for a ruckman especially. Can we say that? I just did. Really good kick by English. So the Dogs get their first of the second half, just their fourth of the game.
Lockie Jones hands it off to Finlayson riding shotgun. Into the 50 he goes for Lord, too high. Spilled to the back though, Horne-Francis pounces! He was lurking dangerously and now he's got two. Tossed in, Finlayson got some space on English on the drop. Whistle coming back, free kick to the power. Horne-Francis charges in, drives it through the goal. Port Adelaide up by a game-high 52.
The 2024 AFL Premiership season.
On your radio.
ABC Sport Digital.
And on the ABC Listen app.
Port Adelaide, an emphatic statement across this afternoon. They have demolished the Dogs, up by 52 points. And now in the top four on the live ladder. Still plenty of footy to come your way. Up next, we'll take you to Cardinia Park for Geelong and Hawthorn. Speaking of finals credentials and contenders clashing. And then tonight, the doubleheader on ABC Sport, the Giants and Carlton and Fremantle and Richmond from 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. So whatever your poison, the ABC Listen app is your home of footy through the AFL and AFL Extra buttons. There is another game on at the moment, speaking of that Listen app, over at the Docklands, which you can hear. North Melbourne leading Gold Coast by 13 points heading into three-quarter time. 11-7-73 to the Suns, 9-6-60. And it just begs the question of, will Gold Coast continue to lose on the road every time they're the away side? So they were technically the home team in Darwin. They haven't been able to get the job done, and it's looking like history could repeat. So North Melbourne up by 13. We'll keep you across that there. Meanwhile, here at the Adelaide Oval, Aaron Norton's been subbed out with concussion. Mitch Georgiadis will be looked at for a high strike for the Power, but so far they haven't activated their sub, Frankie Evans. Aaron Bryans and Neil Cross calling the action. Your experts this afternoon. 7 All-Australian Blazers between them. Josh Franco, Ebony Marinov. Do we see much of the same in this final quarter? How does Luke Beveridge salvage this, Noffy?
Oh, I'm really interested. I mean, we spoke about Bontempelli under an injury cloud last week with the back injury. He played and had 35 and probably took home the 3 Brownlow votes, but he just doesn't look at his best today. There's been a couple of times when he's been under pressure from Port Adelaide midfielders and he just hasn't had that oomph about him. And yeah, it would be an interesting one for the medias in the, I guess, press conference to actually ask Luke Beveridge if he's under that injury cloud, because he just doesn't look up to it. And they're the players that you need fit and firing. We've probably seen in the past when Port haven't had Connor Rosie and Zach Butters firing, it doesn't help their scoreboard pressure. But I think I'd be asking more from the big Bont and just a little bit more execution going inside 50. They're just blazing away and making it really hard for their forwards to get first look.
How wild was that? So he has the flu game, drops 30 touches and 3 goals against the Dockers, then hurts his back last week, 35 touches, and supposed to be healthy this afternoon and is nowhere near his best, Josh.
Well, I guess what we're all guilty of doing with a player like a Bontempelli, who is, as we said throughout the call, rated probably the best player in Australia currently, is that we always turn to him to say, what's going on? Why isn't he playing that well? I must say, I've written 4 names down here, and it's Treloar, it's Liberatore, McRae, and even Ugle-Hagan. Need more out of them as well to carry some of the workload, and I guess that's why Bontempelli is rated so highly, because he continually does it, but he needs more help from his other mids. And look, Treloar's had 27 touches, but they're a lot of junk touches. He's had a kicking efficiency of 31%, which is poor. Most of it's uncontested possessions as well. Liberatore's had 17. I thought he started to get going in that second quarter, but hasn't been able to replicate any of that throughout the third. And also McRae, obviously, I think we've also mentioned too, he's a 3-time All-Australian, but just hasn't been able to impose himself in this contest to the point that he's been able to influence the game. So not enough help for Bontempelli, although Bont does need to do more. But I guess that third quarter was just rinse and repeat for Port Adelaide. Once again, they're able to move the ball far too easily. The Western Bulldogs unable to defend them. And when Western Bulldogs have got the ball, they look absolutely lost. They don't look like they have any method, and I know that they would, and that would be coached into them, but visually they don't look like they've got any method on how they want to move the ball, and they can't execute what they want to do effectively to be able to put any scoreboard pressure on. So, as I said, Western Bulldogs, they've got to keep this margin under what it is, and they don't want to lose too much percentage going into the rest of the season.
Port by 52, and there's some injury news down on the Dogs bench. We'll head to Josh Money in a moment with Aaron Norton already out. Sweet wins the tap, paddling it, looking for Horn Francis. Treloar gets there first. Rushes the kick up to right half forward. Sanders underneath it, 2 to beat. Knocked away from him, but he gets it back from McNeil. Hands it to Williams, and now Treloar again for the Dogs. Into the 50, 2-on-2. Make it 3-on-3. They all come in. Aaliyah knocks it straight down towards Houston. Caught in the tackle, dropped it. Trying to race away from Bontempelli. Just slipped out of his grasp. And the 5-time All-Australian has it. Centre half forward, spots a lead in the pocket. Waiting there was Ugle-Hagan, and he's outmarked by Zerk Thatcher, not paid. A couple of hands in amongst it, so we'll get a ball up instead. Josh Money downstairs.
Yeah, jacket on for James O'Donnell, so he's failed his concussion test. The second Dogs player after Aaron Norton to be rubbed out.
So off the ruck contest, over the boundary line it goes.
Some injury news at the Docklands as well. Tuke Miller's hurt his wrist and has been subbed out of the game.
Lifeblood of the Gold Coast lineup, Tuke Miller. He's been fantastic for them over the years. Ball comes into play again. English off hands to Wines, who clears the area for Port Adelaide. It's going to be coming back. No, not quite. Butters came through, released a hand pass, and the umpire will come in again and separate the players, as Mead was taken solidly in a tackle by Richards. So, as you were, another stoppage. English flips it down. Liberatore trying to walk his way through the pack, unable to do so. Let's go again with another stoppage. Aaron, break it up.
Try my best. Port by 52. Saturday footy on ABC Sport. Sweet. Pushes English out of there and heaves it with an overhead handball, looking for Mead. At least it carried about 5 metres before we got another stoppage forced. Bailey Williams wrapped up in the tackle. We go again. Sweet down to Drew. Bit of volleyball as it bounces up and down off a couple of fists, and finally Dale sends it inside 50 straight to Logan Evans. At least some clean disposal incoming, you'd think. Port Adelaide with the ball. Front of the scoreboard. To the outer side he goes, and Horn Francis again, left unmatched. Takes the mark, turns and goes. Up to Lord, far from home.
Mind you, that kick to Horn Francis was a 45-metre kick with a lot of hang time, and he took it uncontested. Again, poor defending from the Bulldogs.
Lord to Evans. And some issues with his groin in the last quarter, but back out there. Speaking of Evans, this is Logan that has it, and Frankie's yet to be activated, the sub. Up to half forward, his kick was poor from Logan. Cut off by Duray, uses Treloar, then Dale. Up to Bontempelli. Here's all the regular names for the Dogs on the broadcast wing.
Hand passes off to Gallagher, then Treloar. They've gone nowhere. Back to Bontempelli. Forward to Gallagher again. Fumbled the ball on the logo. Marshall came in, gave it to Burgoyne. Off his non-preferred left foot, sits it up in the sun. Finlayson knocks it down, looking for Narkle. Thought he may have got Treloar high. Treloar's got the ball away. Kicks it forward. Marshall went in there. And finally it was Wines, gave it cleanly to Burgoyne, who goes forward to Narkle. Just at the top of the 50, poked it over the top. Finlayson with the mark. There's a lot of energy expelled in there, and then finally some clean football, and Finlayson on the 45-degree angle. We'll have a look at the goal face.
And the ball ends up with Finlayson, but that kick, once again, from Jace Burgoyne was outstanding, just to change the angle, come back inside. He didn't blaze inside forward 50, found Narkle, and then Narkle had the composure to hit Finlayson uncontested.
Trainers out to Ollie Lord too, because it looks like he might have a bit of a problem with the hamstringers. In comes Finlayson from 50, starts it on the left post, stays there, and it's through for the minor score. First score of the final term, extends Port Adelaide's lead to a very, very comfortable 53 points.
Out of the defensive goal square. Dale to Giray. The dual premiership Hawk staring into the sun. Struggling to see far ahead, so we'll go short to English. Left half back at the moment. Now squares it up. It's Gallagher. Down the line. Presenting was Darcy. Backing into the pack was Zirk Thatcher. He brought it down. Ugle-Hagan, though, waiting. Hands it to Treloar and now Richards. Surging into the centre square. He'll hook it around the body. Bit shallow for Bontempelli at full forward. Gathered anyway cleanly. He's handball to McNeil, who slipped over. Coming in, Aaliyah may have caught him high. Very late whistle. Holding the ball. Slid in. McNeil had nowhere to go. And free kick to the Port Adelaide defender in the right back pocket. They're up by 53. Saturday footy on ABC Sport.
So Aaliyah very much taking his time. Now he's called to play on. Bailed out by going back to the goal square. Found Farrell. Now out the other side into the scoreboard pocket to Logan Evans. Looks very composed considering he's just got less than a handful of matches under his belt. Goes to Zirk Thatcher just outside defensive 50. So they've swapped from this broadcast side to the eastern side of the ground. Zirk Thatcher indecisive. Finally goes with a long kick down the line. English from behind hits it. Wines gets it off the pack straight down to half forward with his kick. Bouncing nicely for Georgiades, who he handed it. I'm sure he handed it to Horn Francis, who then tried to give it back to him with a little dinky kick. And knocked out over the boundary line on that eastern side of the ground. 12-9-81 Port Adelaide. Western Bulldogs 4-4-28 on ABC Sport.
I thought the same, Crossy. I thought it was could have almost been pay to throw, couldn't it?
That's like LeBron James, though, carrying the ball. No, he doesn't. Doesn't palm it at all.
Tossed in and Sweet just paddles it back to the boundary line. Score check at the Docklands. You can hear it on the AFL button on the Listen app. The Roos by 13 at the start of the fourth term. 11,773 to 9,660, and there is 31,590 in the house this afternoon. Another low crowd by Port Adelaide standards. To check the numbers, but it could be their lowest of the season. Sanders takes it out of the boundary throw-in and hands it to Dale. Kicks down the outer wing. Zirk Thatcher fell into the ball drop and couldn't quite take it. Keeps fighting, though, on hands and knees. Got a handball out towards Horn Francis, then Drew, barging through a couple. Back towards Evans, who was running out of room and off balance, and he's kicked it out on the full. Free kick in front of the Bashir stand. Josh Money downstairs.
Crossy's eagle eye picked it up before, but Ollie Law just had a bit of work done on his hamstring. Now on the exercise bike, just trying to keep it warm. No movement from Frankie Evans, the sub, just yet, though.
I'd imagine if he has any sort of tightness in his hamstring, you'd sack him, wouldn't you?
Sack him? Or
as in
just take him off the ground?
Injected in.
Yeah. There's no point leaving him out there if there's any sort of injury concerns, particularly with a hamstring.
Just confirming it is Port Adelaide's second lowest crowd of the last 2 years and their lowest this season as well.
And a full car park. Interesting one there, Aaron.
Well, that was your excuse for being late anyway.
Confirm the minute to say, oh.
Now, from the ruck contest, Sweet ended up with a free kick, so there wasn't much play then. And then it got forward hand pass, found Butters, who with the kick found Burne-Jones, who with the kick found Narkle. He played on straight away and went bang, there's a goal. Lovely finish from Quentin Narkle. He's had only a few opportunities in the last couple of seasons on the Port list, but he's making the most of it this afternoon. Port Adelaide 13-9-87. Western Bulldogs 4-4-28. 8 minutes into the final quarter. Josh Franco, besides anything else, as we said, this is costing the Dogs percentage.
Absolutely it is. And when we talk about that middle pack of the ladder and how tight it's going to be for that sort of final couple of spots in the top 8, all of these goals matter. So the Western Bulldogs have to continue to work out a way to try to stem the flow, and they haven't been able to do it all game, and the margin, as you said, it's blown out to 59 points as we speak. There's still 14 minutes of actual game time, so plenty of goals still to kick for the Power if they're good enough.
They've lost 6% this afternoon, the Western Bulldogs.
Yep. The other concern as well is obviously Norton and O'Donnell concussion. They miss definitely miss next week, so that hurts their chances round 18 next week.
Port by 59, Saturday footy on ABC Sport. Darcy to Liberatore, clearance into the 50, big double fist from Zirk Thatcher, pounded it to half back. Waiting there, McNeil, the former Eagle, Gives it off to West, then Bontempelli back to McNeil. They're getting caught here in a phone box and Port Adelaide win out. Rosie, handball over the top looking for Wines. Didn't quite meet him. Darcy waiting. Gives it to Bontempelli, who sidesteps Evans up to the top of the goal square. Long kick, Port out of the outnumber, and Zerk Thatcher cuts it off. They're up by 59. Josh Money downstairs.
Port has made it sub. It's a surprising one. Zach Butters doesn't look to have an injury other than leather poisoning, but he's taken his place on the back bench. Put on ice, and Frankie Evans coming into the game.
Meanwhile,
smart, I reckon.
Port cleared the ball wide onto the eastern wing. Karmas picked it up, gave it to Sanders, and Sanders tried to kick it forward, and it was smothered off the boot and over the boundary line. And we'll get a throw in. Bergman doing the job for Port Adelaide there. So, yes, Josh, as you say, it's just
management.
Put them on ice.
Yep.
We've got this game well and truly managed. So Darcy in the ruck contest from the throw-in came down to Richards, gave it to Dale on the turn, just blasted inside forward 50. Ugle-Hagan with an honest effort. Off the hands, down to West, and he's kicked a goal. And there it is, just their second goal of the second half, the Western Bulldogs, and a second goal for Riley West this afternoon. Bulldogs move along 5-4-34. Underwhelming score, that's for sure. Port Adelaide 13-9-87. They've been far too good as we hit 10 minutes in the final quarter.
And I guess going back to the Butters sub, that in terms of management of a younger player and the way that he plays this game, it's very combative. So I think it's actually a smart move. I was almost going to say probably would have been rock, paper, scissors to see whether it was Butters or Rosie, but he's had a couple of weeks off, hasn't he, with his hamstring?
Well, he probably needs the continuity.
Yeah, he does, yeah.
But, you know, after this game, I think Port Adelaide definitely jump into the top four, and there's a bigger picture, and you almost sense this is a bit of a statement game back at home, and they can really get their season back alive and really, I guess, strive for that top four spot.
Port by 53. In the middle, Darcy again wins it towards Richards, and now Sanders. Around the body, hit and hope towards the 50. Rising up West, knocked it down, straight to Gallagher. Gives it off to McRae, and now McNeil. Just outside the paint of 50, spots Bontempelli. Lace out, 25 out, 45-degree angle to the left.
Bontempelli started to get going, hasn't he? Albeit a little bit too late. 8 disposals for the first 3 quarters, and he's now lining up for his 7th touch this quarter.
The Bonts starts inside the arc, kicks, a straight drop, but it's just hooked its way left very hard and fast. Not sure if part of that was the breeze, but it's gone through for a minor score on the left. Dogs trail by 52, 5-5-35 to Port Adelaide's 13-9-87.
Bontempelli, usually a really good decision maker. He's running at 33% disposal efficiency today via his kicking.
Doesn't look like the best in the world at the moment as Port Adelaide sweep it through the middle, and inside 50 with a long kick out into space. Georgiades will run it down first and then fumbled. Oh dear, he probably had a shot on goal if he picked it up. Lob chasing him down, who's gone back again. So Lob's gone the full circle today, back to forward to in the middle of the ground, and now he's back in the defensive lineup. Port Adelaide just too easily able to move that forward in that situation.
Toss back in. Finlayson took it out of the ruck and turned and handed it to Treloar. Must have heard the call. Western Bulldogs get out of defensive 50. McRae on a one-on-one with Farrell fighting for it. Bontempelli comes across, overcommitted. Bergman waited for the bounce. Gathered high into the 50 for Port Adelaide. Long, strong with 3 bodies over him. Some of the best in the game, and he's clunked that.
If I could just go back to that, you talked about that ball movement previously. The kick from Houston, it was a long 45 back into the corridor, found Finlayson. Good sides don't give you that. They don't give you the opportunity to hit that one. They defend it and turn it over.
Lob to Dale, darts it to Richards. He'll juke it off to Fraser, to the broadcast wing for the Dogs. Bounces in front of McNeil, clean gather, hands it off to Bontempelli. Low to ground, clean touch. Worm burner though into the 50. Darcy fell over trying to gather at the big man, and Burgoyne can hack it out of there towards the broadcast wing again. On the logo, it's knocked down to Boak. Sidestepping a couple of tackles. Frees himself up to Wines, and now over the top to Marshall. They just want to go. He hands it to Finlayson. Charging back. One out is Georgiades. Juggles, couldn't quite claim it against Lobb. Narkle is surging by. Handed it off. Georgiades for 5. His first ever handful as they just surged it forward. Port Adelaide up by 58. 14-9-93 to the Dogs, 5-5-35. 14 minutes into the final term. Saturday footy on ABC Sport. Your experts, 4-time showdown medalist Josh Franco, 6-time All-Australian Ebony Marinoff.
Well, again, we've just seen Port Adelaide's ball movement. It's far too easily able to transition the ball from D50 into forward 50, and once again, it's symptomatic of really poor defensive work from the Western Bulldogs. And I know all these AFL clubs, having been involved as a coach for 7 or 8 years, they review the game with a fine-tooth comb. And tell you what, they would have probably 30 or 40 clips to be able to show their players about how poor they've been defensively come the review on Monday. And a few nervous boys walking into that review, I would imagine.
So Sweet with a beautiful tap down against English, gave it to Horne-Francis inside 50. Lord comes out and smashes into Georgiades. Ball to ground, Horne-Francis, handball inside. Rosie couldn't take it, puts on a tackle. Georgiades just getting back to his feet after that collision. Well, you talk about the separation of powers. You would like to think that Georgiades and Lord wouldn't go for the same ball in that situation. It's could have been a shocking collision. Georgiades, as I said, he's still crouched over.
Sweet wins it down. Still working out their chemistry, Crossy. Found Horne-Francis tight in the pocket, snaps around the body, sits up on the behind line, knocked away from a couple of Dogs defenders, and Lord unselfishly retreats with a kick to the sub, Francis Evans.
I actually thought
backwards?
Lord,
yeah,
I thought he was going to kick it over his head then.
I think he thought about it for a second.
He confused me. I actually thought, am I on the wrong arc here? Because he looked so confident to get out of there.
Yeah. But he did it well, though.
Always knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
Francis Evans ends up marking 30 out. It's a tight angle on the right. Goalless in his last 3 senior games. Comes in and sprays it. He's very lucky the breeze has pulled that back because it started far right. Miners score. Port Adelaide 14-10-94. The Dogs 5-5-35. Over at the Docklands, North Melbourne looking pretty comfortable, up by 16. 10 minutes into the final term over the Suns.
Bramble goes short, and now he goes wide, and Duray brings it in with one hand, and it was hovering over the line as he took it, and the boundary umpire kept the whistle out. So Duray goes back, and they'll try and swap sides. They go via Bramble to get it to Lobb, and he's got it out to the eastern side. There's a bit of room out there. Ailey Williams down the line to the mark taken there by Karmas. So Karmas is held up, goes inside with his kick. English with the mark. He'll go high inside 50, and Aaliyah just got rid of his man Darcy, but didn't watch the ball, and Bontempelli did, and he took it on his chest. It was uncontested virtually. So Bontempelli with a chance to kick his, I was about to say third, but it's only his second of the day. So he's had he's had 4 shots at goal. So in he comes, virtually straight in front, kicks for goal, and just gets it inside the left post. Gee, the goal umpire took a fair while to have a look at that, and Bontempelli has 2 for the afternoon. Bulldogs, their second goal of the final quarter, and they move along to 6-5-41. Port Adelaide in a commanding position, obviously, 14-10-94. As we get towards time on in the final quarter, your experts on ABC Sport, Josh Franco and Ebony Marinoff.
Well, Bontempelli's come to the party a little bit too late, though. He's had the 9 touches, but still going at 20%. And you almost sense, I'm really intrigued to see if he's under injury cloud. He's played a little bit more forward, even in this quarter. He's such a strong body that Lockie Jones just got caught off guard and it fell straight in his lap. But he's playing deep inside forward 50.
So coming up next, Port Adelaide will face Gold Coast at Carrara. The Dogs have Carlton to come, and Geelong and Sydney after that. So the season fading fast now. Sweet down, looking for Wines. Horn Francis rips it away, extracting it out of the stoppage and fending off Treloar. Wants to keep going, handing it to Wines in the end. And now Farrell off the back step into the 50. English flew back with the flight, towed up everybody, spilled down to Rosie. Quick kick towards goal, and it's bounced through. Good Shepherd on the line, and the skipper gets on the board. It's the 9th goal kicker for the Power this afternoon, and they're up by 59 once again. 15-10-100 as they raise the bat at the Adelaide Oval. The Dogs 6-5-41. Time on in the 4th. Saturday footy on ABC Sport.
We're just looking at the replay, and I'm just thinking Connor Rosie, is anything he can't do? It looked like that was a snap from about 45 metres out from goal. Unbelievable kick. Even though it was shepherded on the line, it was a terrific finish and started the game really strongly. I think he had 18 disposals in that first quarter. He's currently got 32, so he's had, 14 in the last 3 quarters, and he's been one of the dominant players on the ground. Outstanding performance.
Struggles with his left foot. I'm just saying, you can't do everything.
Yeah. Yeah, fair call. Yeah.
Zach Butters does that for him, left and right. You're not quite sure what's coming from him.
No, Batman and Robin have done well this afternoon for Port Adelaide. Out of the middle, Rosie again, didn't take possession, socketed it on the ground, out towards centre wing. McNeil picked it up for the Dogs to Bramble, forward hand pass to Sanders. Bramble gets it back, off to Treloar, near the boundary line. Treloar shakes off Rosie, inside with his kick was very good. Vandermeer with the mark. He's at half forward, goes to centre half forward. He picks up his man there. Fraser, he runs a long way, straight away, kicks the ball straight through for a goal. So just the last, in fact, that's his first goal in his career for Fraser. So the Dogs will come around and support him, but not with as much enthusiasm as if it had been the 17th goal instead of just the 7th goal for Port Adelaide. So Dogs move along to 7-5-47, 15-10-100 Port Adelaide. And it's been over for quite a while, this match. The Dogs were competitive early, but certainly they were quickly trounced.
On the text line, Dave says, "Hi team, why haven't Port Adelaide played like this always? Why? Just why?" Just take it, Dave. Hopefully it gets better from here. And Mary, Jim, Stu and Gay are listening from Sisters Beach. Great way to spend a Saturday afternoon. Come on the Dogs. It's a bit late for that, I think, guys. But
that text got it delayed in delivery.
I say it just came through, but hopefully it isn't a bit of delay because, yeah, unfortunately it's game over, I think. Sweet down, looking for Mead. Treloar there first. Got a handball against his opposing number 1, but only found Horn Francis. Now Evans, that's Francis to Mead, and into the 50 to Lord. Charging out, put it in his path, and he takes it on the chest, 45 out, slight angle to the left.
What was that text, Aaron, about why are Port playing like this?
Yeah, why haven't they played like this always?
Well, what I would say to that text is that the Western Bulldogs have allowed them to play the brand of footy that they want to play. And again, I know I've sounded like a broken record, but they just haven't defended Port Adelaide's ball movement at all. Far too many uncontested marks, unable to cause the turnover to go back at them offensively.
Lord comes in, sprays it across the face, and floating across, Lob knew exactly where it was going.
And the good sides in this comp won't let Port Adelaide play this brand.
Kick was miserable though, long and wide. He's trying to get it to Bramble, and it's rolled over the boundary line, but he was pushed over. Late effort there from Lord to try and make amends, and has given away the free kick. That's strike 2. Karmas gives it off to Dale, spears it hard, just the 15 to Gallagher at centre half back, and now Treloar for the Dogs, defensive edge of the square.
Gallagher runs and receives the hand pass and then has to give it straight back to Treloar. On the bounce, he picks it up. Forward of centre wing with his kick. He did to Sanders. Holds up, nothing inside. Forced outside. Duray, he'll want his left leg, so he props and then arcs around on the left foot. Long and high into the scoreboard pocket. Off hands. Richards picked it up, and he will carry a Port player in Francis Evans for a little while before the umpire blows the whistle. Says, let's ball it up. Right forward pocket for the Dogs. Ball comes down Richards, flipped it to Sanders, off his left foot, sends it high, top of the goal square. Ball finds some grass somehow amid 4 players. Jones picks it up for Port. Boak had an easy handball to make, and it fell off his hand. He goes back and gets it. Burgoyne under pressure gives it up. McNeil snaps for goal, and there's a forgettable piece of play, finally finished with a nice bit of skill from McNeil. Goal for the Dogs. They narrow the margin. It's all cosmetic at this stage. 24 minutes into the final quarter. Port Adelaide 15-10-100. Western Bulldogs move along to 8-5-53. Josh Franco and Ebony Marinoff, your experts on ABC Sport.
That's just that forward pressure that they probably haven't had all day today. Tom Liberatore comes in, but a little bit too late today for the Bulldogs. Just had no real urgency around their forward arc. I mean, that's a fantastic finish, but you would have liked to have seen that. Like Josh said, they've defensively and offensively been not with it today. There's been a lack of energy and intent from majority of the players.
Who have they got to come back? Obviously Jones.
Waitman.
Yep. He'll help them out. Yeah.
James Harms is in the 2s at the moment.
Yep.
Port by 47. Saturday footy on ABC Sports. Sweep down to Wines. Now Mead. Nice little chain. Rosie. Hollywood handball over the top to Drew at right half forward. Lowers the eyes and hits Marshall. Procession out of the middle for Port. And Big Todd has it 45 out. 45 degree angle to the right. Over at the Docklands, getting a little tight. 7 to play. 6 now. Kangaroos by 11 over the Gold Coast Suns. If you want to hear it, flick on the ABC Listen app, hit the AFL button. We won't be offended. This game is well and truly over. Still to come today, Geelong and Hawthorn as well. That's where you're going next at Cardinia Park. And then tonight, the Giants and the Blues and the Dockers and the Tigers. Todd Marshall looking for his first of the afternoon. Kicks from bang on 50, starts right and never a chance. So far wide that it hits the right hand behind post. Out on the full. Interesting season for Marshall. Up there in terms of their leading goal kickers, but yet to kick more than a goal in only 3 games this season. So hasn't exactly been prolific, just reliable.
Bailey Dale goes short and he finds Bramble. So Lockie Bramble plays on down the line. Richards, good strong mark ahead of Rosie. Backs outside the 5 metres. Port Adelaide can concede that as we count down towards full time. Richards high and long near the interchange gates. Ball falls down to Riley West. Umpire spotted a free kick, and it will be Darcy, who hasn't seen a lot of the ball. He's got his hands on it now. Hand passes off to Richards. One bounce at half forward. He just goes long and high looking for Bontempelli against Aaliyah, and Bontempelli's going to be rewarded with a free kick. Aaliyah had the arms around him, according to the umpire. So 25 out and a 45 degree angle to the left for Bontempelli, so not necessarily advantaging his left foot.
Just had a look at the replay too, Crossy. Not a lot in that free kick. Aaliyah was protesting with the umpire, and rightly so.
Bontempelli narrow with the kick, which to me it looked like he actually rushed that kick at goal then, which is a sense of, well, we know what's happening. We're not going to win this match. So minor score for the Bulldogs, 46 the margin in favour of Port Adelaide, and the countdown clock tells us there's just over 2 minutes to go.
4 left at the Docklands. North still up by 2 goals. Quick transition from Port Adelaide up to the outer wing. Marshall just behind left half forward did well, bouncing off Caulfield to get it to Boak, squeezing it into the left forward pocket. Lord can gather, tumble it on the tight angle. That would have been special, but it clatters into the right hand goalpost. Trying something fancy, the big man didn't pull it off. Port by 47, they'll get another chance. Racing out a defensive 50. Frazier's kicked it to Drew. And he marks it 45 out, tight angle to the right.
Well, just some stats as well, just to highlight the dominance of Port Adelaide and the way that they want to play, as Drew finds Ollie Wines, and another uncontested mark inside forward 50. For the match, they've had 118 marks. Only 7 of those have been contested, and Port Adelaide have taken 17 marks inside their forward 50. So pretty damning numbers against the Western Bulldogs.
Excellent calling there from you, Josh, as well. Maybe another one to add to your resume. Ollie Wines has the footy, right half forward, very long approach. Man on the marks, 40 out. Across the paint of 50, Ollie Wines hits it wide. Minor score on the right-hand side. Port by 48 as we close in on the full-time siren.
So it'll be Bailey Dale to bring the ball back in. Pauses at the top of the goal square. Now he plays on. Heads to the eastern side. Ran every bit of his 15 metres. Out on the eastern side of the ground. Standing at the back of the pack and pulling it down was Horn Francis. Rather too easily. The man who plays with his socks up. Personally, I like that. Everybody else with the socks down. Goes wide to Rosie. So Rosie's got the mark. Decides to play on now. Sends it high. Right to the top of the goal square. English goes back. Sort of late afternoon kick to kick. English with the mark. Goes into the pocket to Giray.
Giray exits to the broadcast wing for the Dogs. Aaliyah rising above Darcy, got a hand in and gathers as well. Flung it out with the crumb. It was definitely a throw. Whistle stays away. Liberatore had over the footy for the Dogs. Gets it to Darcy, then Vandermeer. Handball out wide to McRae. Down the broadcast wing he goes. Kick on the 45 short to Gallagher. Port Adelaide demolish the Dogs. Their emotional roller coaster clears the loop-de-loop. They rise up to the top four. Western Bulldogs season hanging by a thread. Port winners by 48 points. 15-12, 102 to 8-6-54. Port's 10th win of the campaign was an emphatic one. They led all afternoon by 30 at quarter time, 44 at the half, 52 at three-quarter time, and ultimately winners by 48. Mitch Georgiadis had a career-high 5. Jason Horne-Francis with 3. Singles to Rosie, Butters, Wines, Sweet, Lord, Burne-Jones and Narkle. They moved to 10 and 6 and are inside the top 4. The Western Bulldogs a dire day. 2 to Bontempelli, Western English. Singles to McNeil and Fraser. Port Adelaide continue this late run in the hopes of finding an elusive flag. Plenty of analysis coming your way in a moment, but let's quickly head to the Docklands because there's a kick in it between the Roos and the Suns.
Big ball to win here on the wing. McKercher, long to the wing. Sherry and Larkey in the pack. Ball spills out the back, Roos onto it. Curtis kicks outside of the right boot. Bounces away down to half forward. Suns a long way from home. Swallow first one there for Gold Coast. Hand pass to Ballard. Shakes the Simpkin tackle at half back. He goes short to Anderson. Roos by 4 points. Suns with the footy. 38
Oh, Sheasel! Handball knocked down by Sheasel. Gets the handball away towards Davies Uniacke. Left foot. His kick goes to full forward and Ballard marks.
30 seconds.
Hurry, Charlie. Torp down the middle.
Come on, go.
Oh, Charlie.
Ballard at fullback. Pokes it to the pocket. Mark taken by Anderson. He knows what's required. Drives it up the middle for Moyle. The big fella juggles it. Doesn't mark. Ball hits the deck. They pile on top of it. Davies Uniacke wants to keep it in. And we will get a ball up in the middle. Game on the line. Time on the clock for the Gold Coast Suns.
Seconds ticking down, North by 4 from the restart. Davies Uniacke knocks it out to Sheasel. Hand pass to Zerhard, kicks forward, Curtis marks. Siren! And for the first time since round 1 last year, the Victorian base fans get to join in the chorus. North Melbourne winners by 4 points.
And sing it one and all.
Oh, what a result there at the Docklands. North are off the bottom of the table. Here, Port Adelaide are in the top 4. Winners by 48 points. We're with you for the next 10 minutes before we take you to Cardinia Park for Geelong and Hawthorn. So our thoughts of our experts, Josh Franco and Ebony Marinoff this afternoon.
Well, looking at Port Adelaide, it was really a dominant display. And if you looked at the numbers overall, it does definitely highlight that. So in terms of, I guess, the KPIs, in terms of mentality and how you approach the game, the contested ball, the ground ball gets, they were dominant in those two areas. But probably the area where they absolutely destroyed the Western Bulldogs was the uncontested game. And no doubt Port Adelaide, based on the way they wanted to play the game today, came in with a plan to maintain possession, to try to kick mark, particularly in their sort of back 2/3 of the ground, and at times in their front half put speed on the ball so they could get some good looks inside forward 50. And we saw that numerous times throughout the call. And I guess offensively, Port Adelaide were back to their best. And I know we got a text in that last quarter around how come Port Adelaide can't play like this all the time, or words to that effect. That the fact is you come up against sides that defend the way they want to move the ball better. And today, as we said, and being really critical of the Western Bulldogs, they defended the ground really, really poorly and got cut up and paid the price accordingly. And even when they had ball in hand, the Western Bulldogs, they were unable to get any sort of movement, any sort of flow in their game, and rarely throughout the course of the game were they able to apply any sort of scoreboard pressure. So I guess overall, from Port Adelaide's perspective, Ken Hinkley would be really impressed with the way they went about their business today. The supporters would walk away really satisfied that they got the 4 points. It was a dominant display, but I think equally as disappointed would the Western Bulldogs fans be with the display, particularly with what was on the end of this game. I know it was only 4 points, but in terms of the context of the season and the context of the ladder, it was a really, really disappointing display.
Oh, it was a massive... I mean, we're going to keep saying this only because from 4th to 13th, there's just so much in it. But the Bulldogs, just no fight from the start of the game. And, you know, to allow Connor Rosie and Zach Butters just run right in the first quarter, that really set up Port Adelaide's game. And I think, I like the way you said that, just being able to execute and move the ball a bit more freely. I mean, unfortunate that Bulldogs weren't able to press the ground, but Port Adelaide's execution across the 4 quarters was super impressive. They were a bit more measured with how they moved the ball inside 50 and then off the half back. To kick 6+ goals through the defensive half is really impressive for Port Adelaide.
Well, no, I guess as well, I don't want to sound like a party pooper for the Port Adelaide supporters. Again, walk away from this saying, yep, we got the 4 points, we got the job done, but don't get too excited about what you saw today. Because as I said, the Western Bulldogs were bitterly disappointing. And as I said, their fans will be really disappointed in the way that they performed today. But Port Adelaide, you can only do what you can do and only play the way that you can play depending on how the opposition allows you to play, and they're allowed to move the ball far too easily. But be satisfied, but don't get too overwhelmed or overjoyed by the fact that they got the 4 points and the way they did it, because, as I said, they'll come up against better sides in the next few weeks that won't let them move the ball the way that they did today.
After a fortnight from hell, they made their way around the entire ground to celebrate with the fans, who have now converged at the players' race in the Riverbank stand. They'll get a standing ovation on the way down. Port Adelaide string together a couple of victories, just like that in the top 4, and that's, I guess, the tumultuous season that we're in. The scrutiny can be hot, but it's so unpredictable this year.
Well, the question, Aaron.
So unpredictable.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were here a couple of weeks ago when they were booing him. I wonder if the perception of those booers has changed over the last fortnight.
I think Ken Hinkley was down to the rooms fairly early, actually. They didn't stay out on the ground. I think he went down straight away. I didn't see him at all when I was looking, so I think it was just, okay,
job done.
We're done.
Yep. Let's head inside the power rooms. Port winners by 48. Josh Money's amongst it.
Gee, what a difference a fortnight makes. It was such a sombre mood in here a couple of weeks ago after that 79-point Lions mauling. Very, very different mood today. All of a sudden, Port back in the top 4 and plenty of feeling, I imagine, in this club cell. Big win, some happy boys.
Fans wouldn't be too stoked, though. The screen blacked out as they started to sing the song, so they missed half of it. But regardless, I'm sure they'll be able to see it everywhere because that's a big win by Port Adelaide. 48 points in the end. The votes, Josh Franco?
Yep, so look, we'll go 1, 2 and 3. So one vote given to Zach Butters. I thought his game was outstanding. Even though he got subbed off for that last quarter, he still had 33 disposals. He kicked at 84% efficiency and kicked a goal as well. So I thought his game was outstanding, particularly when it needed to be won. Mitch Georgiades kicked 5 goals, 1, so he gets 2 votes. I thought his game right from the get-go was terrific. And 3 votes to Connor Rozee as best on ground. 36 disposals. He kicked at 68% efficiency. His numbers stack up pretty well. He had 14 contested possessions, 21 uncontested, 7 clearances, 7 inside 50s and 7 score involvements for 1 goal too. So he was outstanding and gets the 3 votes.
It's funny how he's had a couple of injuries and loses a bit of form as a result by missing game time and struggling to get back to his best. And a lot of the media pundits turned on him and said he wasn't a top 100 player, purely statistically and then also from what he was putting out there. And
is that true?
Yeah, there were numerous people who said he wasn't
not a top 100 player.
Be top 20.
Yeah.
Top 20.
Are you allowed to say who said that? Because that is ridiculous.
Kane Corns was certainly one of them.
Oh, wow. Kane, what are you doing?
How does Marcus Bontempelli look after that match too?
Yeah,
there you go.
But it's funny how a performance can totally turn that on a head. Yeah. He's at his best. He's dynamic, explosive, and damaging. And Connor Rozee looks like the player we've known to love over the last few years. He's just needed a bit of time to find his best once again.
And his strength is his footwork. And when you've got an ankle injury or you're a hamstring, when you're hampered by that, it does take time to find form. And I think punters are quick to, I guess, comment on bad form or whatnot, but reality is, as a footy player in the high demands that, your ankle stability and hamstrings, it was always going to take him time to hit form. But if you're a Port Adelaide fan, Connor Rozee hitting form at the right time, and even the way they managed him through the ankle injury took a little bit longer, it's probably going to be better in the long run.
It's a dip for Zach Butters, though. Brownlow medal, 3 votes last year in both round 13 and round 5 against the Western Bulldogs. According to Josh, he's only worth 1 vote this afternoon. Yet he's had more possessions in this match than both those, 31 and 32 last season. What do you have today?
That's on
30,
he can thank him.
Yeah, you can thank him for that. Yeah, absolutely.
Incredible that you can have 33 touches before basically missing an entire quarter of footy. So a very impressive afternoon from the power mid. So Rozee 36, Butters 33, Wines 30 and Horne-Francis 20 and 3 goals. So they look back to their best, and they'll need to be so because the run home from here is pretty tough. They've got the Suns, the Blues, the Swans, the Showdown and Fremantle as part of their last 8.
Wow.
Meanwhile, the Western Bulldogs doesn't get any easier. So Carlton next Saturday, Geelong after that, at Cardinia, the Swans. They've got Melbourne, Adelaide, and then finish with North and GWS. So the next 3 will really set the tone of their campaign, sitting at 8 and 8 and outside of the top 8. The Western Bulldogs will have to try and jag something over the next 3 weeks if they're any hope of playing finals as that chasing pack starts to get a little bit tighter. Josh, thanks so much for your time once again. Great to see you.
That was great.
Ebbs, I'm glad you made it.
Me too.
Through the 31,590 in the car park. Crossy, good calling as always. Big thanks to Josh Money downstairs. He's going to have a chat with Connor Rozee, so we'll try and work that to you, whether it's at halftime of the next game or online. So just keep touch with us across our socials on ABC Sport. Big thanks to Andrea Williamson back in the studio, to Paul Brokenshaw as well. Port Adelaide winners by 48 points, 15-12, 102 to the Dogs 8-6, 54. And over at the Docklands, North Melbourne with their second victory, lifting themselves off the bottom of the ladder, defeating the Suns 13-9, 87 to 12-11, 83. You're headed to Cardinia Park next as your Saturday of footy rolls on. Matt Clinch, Lauren Borden, Nathan Burke, Daniel Harford standing by for the Cats and the Hawks on ABC Sport.
Wimbledon 2024 on ABC Sport. Hear it live every night on the ABC Listen app.